I think his only issue was that, there was no, like you said, there was no electronic version of the textbook, and that was his concern. And what he wanted to see was where we currently are and what changes are being made. And he did admit, I came on the meeting late and I missed it, so he did admit that.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with this.
Bull ain't gone yet. Not yet, bro. Oh, because we got some awards. Watch how fast it clear out.
I'd like to call the Windsor Board of Education meeting of Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 to order. Please stand for the pledge to the flag and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. This is always an exciting night when we have opportunities to recognize some outstanding students. And without further ado, I'll turn this over to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fury. This is like one of the exciting moments, the things we get to do in education when we get to recognize students who do great things. And we have lots of great students in Windsor, as I always say. So I definitely enjoy this night as well. So these are CAPS Student Leadership Awards. And just for background, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents Student Leadership Award is given to 3 students at both Sage Park Middle School and Windsor High School who show leadership to the school, academic prowess relative to ability, and service to others in the community. The goal of the award is to focus on students whose accomplishments and activities go beyond academic success and include service and leadership, making them role models for other students. So we have, first we're going to call Ms. Jorgensen, who's going, are you doing, you're looking at me crazy. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. So we're going to call Principal Jorgensen from Sage Park Middle School, who's going to introduce her student award winners.
A little different. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leanna Jorgensen, proud principal of Sage Park Middle School, and tonight I'm going to introduce to you 3 amazing students who attend Sage Park. I'll let my comments speak for themselves. So it's with great honor that I present to you the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents Award of Academic Excellence to Daisy Wimberly. Daisy, you want to come up here and sit with me for a minute? So you get to smile while I talk about you. So this award is one of many awards that Daisy has received while at school. She's been recognized as a high honor and honor student throughout her middle school career. In addition, Daisy has also been placed in both math and reading challenge classes for her time. In 2019, Daisy became a member of the Connecticut Kid Governor Cabinet and is currently a member of their advisory board. She was also recently chosen to participate in her school's leadership program. Daisy is a determined and disciplined student. She has maintained her VIP status for the past 2 years and takes pride in her ability to follow the Sage Park core values of being safe, responsible, and respectful. In addition, Daisy also exhibits determination and discipline outside of school. As a competitive dancer, all of these traits have assisted her in her success. Her most difficult accomplishment so far would be balancing her schoolwork and dance schedule. Feeling overwhelmed was new for her, but didn't deter her from being her best. Daisy continues to persevere and give it all every day while doing the things that she loves the most. She is currently an all-A student and received Student of the Month. Daisy credits her achievement to her persistence and determination to succeed. She has developed a vast knowledge bank of everything she's learned in her core academics. Not only does she use this knowledge for herself, but also for others around her, knowing that she has helped another person become successful satisfy her. Daisy's ELA teacher, Mrs. Renner, said, Daisy is a leader in the classroom and encourages her peers to put in their best effort and be more involved. She always excels academically and helps others to better understand the content. Daisy's math teacher, Mrs. Nine, said, Daisy is determined to be successful as an incredible hard worker. She's passionate, caring, and is such an incredible addition to my classroom. I am so proud of all she has accomplished, and I am eager to see what she will do in the future. And finally, Daisy's social studies teacher, Mr. Guerrero, said, Daisy is a consistent hard worker. She makes her goals clear and sets out to achieve them at every opportunity. She is driven. She shows signs of leadership and a pleasure to have in class. Daisy is a persistent student and enjoys pushing herself. I look forward to seeing the great things from her as well. So everyone's waiting for great things from you in the future, and so I congratulate you, Daisy, for academic excellence.
Yeah.
Can I just touch you? Can I just touch your hem? Can you just touch the hem of your coat? Dr. Hill, that's a supreme athlete right there you stand next to. Fierce. Congratulations, sir. That's okay. We're over a good challenge.
Fine, okay.
Well, one, at least one person is not really.
It's fine.
We're fine.
We're fine.
We got y'all. Carol's in the back, right? They got the family. That is their picture.
All right. So my next dynamic student, the Connecticut Association Public Schools Superintendent's Leadership Award goes to Joshua Luby. This is better than hanging from a rope. Huh? Yeah. We were on a field trip earlier today, so it's been pretty interesting. All right, so Joshua started helping in his community when he was a very young age. In 5th grade, before the pandemic, he joined the Clover Street School K-Kids Club. With this group, Joshua collected items for the Bushnell Park's homeless, collected goods, and wrote letters for active duty military members, and sang Christmas carols to the elderly at Kimberly Hall. Over the past years, Josh and his family have also participated in the Windsor's Project Santa. Project Santa allows others to fulfill a family's wish list of clothing, toys, bedding, and other necessities for Christmas. Currently at Sage Park Middle School, Josh has participated in various extracurricular programs, including the Clued In Cluster, the cross-country team, and has plans to go out for the track in spring. In addition to his extracurricular, Josh has also earned several academic awards. Some of these achievements include Student of the Month in every subject, high honors every quarter in 6th and 7th grade, and the Top Achievement Year in Awards in every subject. He was one of 2 students to get the Scorch Award in 6th grade, demonstrating the Sage Park core values and considered a leader by his classmates. In 7th grade, Josh earned the William Sanders Award by exhibiting ideals of citizenship, consistent performance, and overall spirit essential to the school. This year, Josh was elected to be a member of the Leadership and Future Problem Solvers. And finally, last week, he was inducted into the National Junior Honor Society. Josh's social studies teacher, Mr. Guerrera, notes that Josh consistently hands in exemplary work, but is also consistently humble. He's not afraid to answer questions. He leads by example and has helped other students in a non-judgmental way. He is an invaluable addition to my class. Josh's algebra teacher, Mrs. Burkell, also says, Josh never fails to impress me with his determination, dedication, and leadership skills while working with his peers. He's a very strong math student and demonstrates conceptual understanding of our 8th grade honors algebra curriculum. Josh shows an immense amount of promise in everything he puts his mind to, and I'm honored to have him as a student in my class. So Josh, congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
All right, everyone all set? Mr. Three. Perfect, thank you.
My Sophia. And my last candidate, but certainly not least, it is with great honor that I present the Connecticut Association of Public Schools Superintendents Award of Community Service to Sophia Mancino. Sophia is an altruist in and out of school and definitely a force to be reckoned with. Sophia has volunteered for the Friends of Windsor Animal Care and Control. She has fundraised to support the FOWACC in buying oxygen masks for service dogs that help firefighters or dogs that were caught in fires. Sophia has also volunteered her time to help walk, feed, and play with animals that were being fostered there. In addition, she has fostered dogs, providing a safe and happy home for them while they go through the adoption process. Sophia is a member of Villari's Martial Arts, and within that organization, she is a member of STORM, Student Team of Role Models. Members of STORM team often volunteer for movie nights, date camps, and events. And while at the events, STORM team members help with younger children by serving food and playing games. In the fall of 2021, Sophia started volunteering as a coach at Windsor Soccer Club. She has spent many Saturdays coaching until most recently this fall, an age group of kindergartners, first grade, and 2 to 4-year-olds. In addition to all of the work Sophia does outside of the school, she has been a member of the Sage Park Builders Club since 6th grade. As a member of the Builders Club, Sophia has participated in many can drives, coat drives, hats and gloves drives, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society support. Ms. Hislop, Technology Student Association advisor, shared, Sophia is dedicated to finding ways to make things better for projects by helping others and trying to include everyone. She always helps out during a setup of the competition days, as well as help younger students at competition with their robots, even from other schools and teams. Sophia Mancino has been a part of the Sage Park Live news team from its onset. In addition to other programs, she's also involved in the Chargers Choir, National Junior High Society, Sage Park Windsor Leos, and the Food Bank. Mrs. Haynes, Sophia's language arts teacher, commented, Sophia Mancino is a hardworking and dedicated student. She is a leader in the school and has worked with various organizations to help better her community. She's a newly inducted member in the National Junior High Society and is interested in coming up with strategies to aid students with managing their mental health. She's even met with me, her principal, to share ideas of ways to support students' mental health in the building. Sophia is motivated to make a school, or our school, a better place for all students. Her social studies teacher, Mrs. Achman, also noted, Sophia is a bright, shining example of what being the change she would like to see in the world. Sophia truly possesses an altruistic spirit and is conscientious and empathetic in her actions and choices. I couldn't imagine a student more deserving of this honor. Congratulations, Sophia.
Family. All right, everyone here.
Oh, sweetheart, your legs are so long.
Thank you, Ms. Jorgensen, and congratulations again to all our award winners from Sage Park. At this time, we're going to call Principal Parker up to introduce each of the award winners from Windsor High School.
Good evening, everyone. I gotta get you some leg room. So this evening, I have the pleasure of, well, my name is Breon Parker, and I am proud principal of Windsor High School. And this evening, I have the privilege and honor of presenting 3 of our amazing students from Windsor High School. So our first recipient, I'm going to call up Mr. Jaron Langford. Thank you, sir. Hello. So over the course of Windsor High School students, of his career, high school career, students are asked to complete a minimum of 20 hours of community service. Many students exceed the requirement, and this is the case for Jaron. Over the course of the 4 years, Jaron has completed a total of 475 community service hours and counting. He has been a member of Windsor High School's Black Excellence, Future Educators Program, and the Action Club. In addition, for the past 3 years, Jaron has been an active member of the Greater Hartford Youth Leadership Academy. The youth development strategies and interventions using a multi-stage analytic process linking data from root causes and local conditions. Jaron devotes his time weekly and adds great value to this program. He has led many team activities, such as participating in the Raising Youth Voices podcast, participation in the Hartford Communities That Care Deliberative Forum, and legislative roundtable events examining gun violence preventions and resources, and engaging in dialogue with Congressman John Larson on the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act regarding the racial injustice issues related to police accountability. Jaron is also co-presented for the Child Safety Forward work group, where he has introduced keynote speakers, Connecticut State Treasurer Sean Wooden in 2021, and the Vice President of Public Relations and Community Engagement at the Charter Oak Health Center, Tiffany Young, in 2022. Jaron's plans after high school include attending a 4-year college to focus on urban planning or psychology. And a little fun fact, if you've heard his name before, if I'm not mistaken, he won this award actually as a Sage Park Middle School. Right?
Yeah, I did.
So he's back. I present to you Community Service Award, Mr. Jaron Langford.
Alright. Everyone ready? Got it.
All right. Our next CAP Student Leadership Award recipient for academics, I'd like to call up Mr. Evan Roach. He probably could have did this from right where he was, as tall as he is. So Evan has an innate ability to learn and excel in the classroom. He simply doesn't know any other way. He earned his high school credits while at Sage Park and has carried a heavy AP load since his sophomore year. Not only that, there is not one grade on Evan's transcript coming into his senior year that is below an A. Evan uses his organizational and time management skills to assist him with completing his work efficiently and completely and always on time. Evan's transcript is truly reflective of his academic talents, and it provides a snapshot of his diligent work ethic. This work ethic carries over into his extracurricular activities, athletics, community service, and his part-time job as he approaches all aspects of life with the same attitude and fortitude, which is why he is such a successful, well-adapted, and well-rounded young adult. Evan's easygoing personality is welcoming to all, and he serves as a role model in the classroom as he engages with and supports those around him, so that all students benefit from his presence. If you've ever heard the song Humble and Kind and listened to the words, this is who Evan Roach is and what he represents every day. Just what we want from our students at Windsor High School. Evan is planning to study business in college and pursue a career in marketing or real estate. I present to you the recipient for the CAP Student Leadership Award for Academics, Evan Roach. And last but not least, the Leadership Caps Award goes to Miss Crudy Darsandia. So Darcindia, excuse me. So Crudy was not able to join us this evening. She had a prior engagement, or as we like to joke at Windsor High School, she's off doing Crudy things. But very well-rounded student, very phenomenal student leader, and we're looking for great things from her. But I'll still read her bio and hopefully join us in celebrating her. There's not an area of Windsor High School that Crudy has not had an impact on. From officer positions in student organizations to being one of the faces of social-emotional learning at Windsor High School and in Connecticut. Crudy embodies leadership in our building. Just to give you a few examples, she is president of our student government. She has served as a student member of the School Governance Council. She is a student advisory leader. As a sophomore, she was one of 2 students who led faculty assemblies on our students' view of the dress code. Those of you who know Crudy know that she is still working on saying no to opportunities. So it should not surprise anyone that she is involved in a number of organizations outside of Windsor Public Schools. She is a co-chair of the Million Women Mentors, an organization focused on empowering women and young girls in STEM. She is a member of the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference Student Equity and Advisory Board, and she represented Connecticut last summer in the National Student Leadership Summit. Crudy really is extraordinary. She is always willing to help when asked. She has the respect of her peers, her teachers, and her administrators. Perhaps, most importantly, if Crudy does not think something is working, she is not afraid to tell you. She is truly an example of leadership and as deserving of this honor as any student could possibly be. Crudy plans to study accounting after leaving us at Windsor High School. I present to you the Leadership Award, Crudy Darsandia.
Thank you, Principal Parker. And I'd like to give one more round of applause for all of our award winners tonight. And I will turn it back over to President Fury.
Thank you. And I want to make sure all families know that if they want to, they can always stay for the rest of the board meeting, but hopefully you'll be able to go and have some cookies and refreshments, but anybody can stay. But thank you so much for being here. It's always wonderful to honor great students. Laura, are you going to stay? Laura, you said you were going to stay. You got to correct those kindergarten papers and stuff.
I haven't fed them yet.
Thanks, guys.
The next item on the agenda is audience to visitor, and I'll let Alexis read her script.
Good evening. This is Alexis Shack from the Superintendent's Office. If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the board, you may do so in 2 different ways. If you are using the Zoom application on your mobile device or computer, you may enter your comments into the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar. Or you may raise your hand on your computer if your device has a microphone by selecting the participant's icon on the Zoom menu bar and then clicking Raise Hand, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address. When you are called on, you will be promoted to panelist. After you make your comments, you will return to attendee status. For clear communication, we ask that you do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own.
Thank you. And for those who are in the boardroom here at the 2.5-minute mark, Vice President Lockhart will raise a red card, and at the 3-minute mark, he'll raise it and hold it and try to, at that point, finish your remarks. For those who are either calling in or Zooming in, if you can't see on Zoom the red card, or you're on a phone link, President Lockhart will have to, at the 3-minute mark, indicate to finish up your remarks. I'd like to take folks first who've come down to the boardroom tonight, and I think we have somebody here right now. If you could state your name and sign in.
All right. Hi, my name is Di Van Houten. I live at 31 Bent Road here in Windsor. I am a parent of 4 kids, one of which still is a student here at Windsor. I'm also a Sage Park school nurse, also known as Nurse Van to many of the kids and the families here. And I'm also a representative of the school governance meeting, school governance SGC. So I'm actually presenting here today to go over a couple of details from our governance meeting that we had yesterday. And one topic that presented to us was the school lunches. I know that the free and reduced lunches are going to be phased out, and they're going to be, the free lunches are going to be leaving. So we came up with 3 concerns as a group. One concern was the federal funding, and we know that that's running out, and we're hoping that we can kind of find a way to extend it and get some more options. Another concern is widening the scope for people who are getting their free and reduced lunches. We also noted that with inflation, the cost of food and everything going up, some of the people aren't going to be able to have meals. So that's one of the other issues. And then the meal options. They're saying that since the food has been free, the processed foods has gone up. There's a greater number of processed, dietary restrictions, the amount of carbs. There was also a discussion about quantity over quality. We have some kids who are football players, and they're given like 4 cheese sticks as the same amount of food as a student who is only like 80 pounds. So we've got an 80-pound and a 180-pound student getting the same amount of food. The variety of food options have gone down significantly. As a parent here who has a child who was in middle school last year, I spent quite a bit of money. Even though the meals were free, I still spent quite a bit of money just trying to keep him full. He would say, "Mommy, can I get another $10?" And I found myself buying 2 and 3 lunches a day just to fill him up. So I think that something needs to be brought to your attention. You need to become aware that the food and the options have gone down significantly, especially since they're free. But I know, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but sometimes the processed food is not even better. And I've had parents say that the food is garbage. And I've got kids coming to the nurse's office hungry, and they're saying, "I didn't eat." And I go, "Why not?" "I don't like that food. I don't like it." And the choices are very limited. So I just wanted to make sure I bring to your attention the limited choices. Even in the high school, my daughter complains and says that they used to have more variety before the food became free. So we're not looking a gift horse, and beggars can't be choosers, but we've got to find a way to feed the minds of our kids and the bodies, because if their stomach is happy, they're no longer hangry. They're happy and they're ready to learn.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to address the board?
Good evening. I'm Jonathan McGlynn. As a resident of Windsor and as a father of children in the school district, I have concerns about the new United States history curriculum map that was presented to the board's curriculum committee this past Thursday. The proposed curriculum eliminates the current curriculum's 15 units and reduces it to 5. One of the units that was eliminated was the junior year United States history research paper, which to me is egregious. The new map is largely topical rather than thorough and chronological, and does not contain significant tasks such as document-based question essays or end-of-unit summative exams. Unit tests that demand recollection of salient facts, as well as opportunities to improve thinking and writing skills in frequent intervals, should be part of this curriculum. Instead, there is only a culminating prompt that encompasses over 50 years of American history. The proposed curriculum consists largely of class debates, completion of graphic organizers, writing a pretend journal entry, single document analysis, miniature document-based questions, reflections, and a brief research project about poets, novelists, and artists, which is already covered in English classes. There is an emphasis on short projects. None of these actually correlates to work that students will be asked to do in college or in life. It is my belief that the current curriculum should remain, with unit tests, which require not just memorization but understanding. Unit tests have questions that echo SAT or AP tests at the appropriate level and require students to understand patterns and content and transfer skills from one lens to the next. Currently, unit tests require thesis-driven essays that bring into play all the important parts of the unit. Eliminating that would be a grave mistake. The current curriculum with 15 units allows for shorter, in-depth units that delve into issues and problems in history and help students build, incrementally, an historical frame of reference. It also allows for more frequent assessment and feedback for students. A survey course in U.S. history from the late 19th century to the 1990s should be just that, a survey course, not a set of small projects. The charge for Windsor High School history teachers should be to provide a survey of American history with wide breadth. This was the charge when the curriculum was approved 6 years ago, and it accomplishes that. The proposal also mentions evaluating new textbooks, with the option of moving to an electronic textbook. I'm concerned that an electronic textbook with license agreements that need to be renewed every 3 to 5 years will come at a significant cost to the taxpayer. We have hundreds of United States history textbooks that students can still use to build their historical framework without an expenditure in the tens of thousands of dollars. Additionally, an online textbook should not be adopted because numerous studies have shown definitively that they are inferior to paper textbooks. Recall and absorption of material is much lower with screens. Distraction is much greater. I urge the board to reject these new curricular changes and to not adopt an electronic textbook. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the board?
Hi, James Madison from 8 Fitzmaurice Circle. I have 2 kids in the system, and I have an observation that I'm really happy about, and I want to offer it as an opportunity for positive reinforcement and ask that you continue to do it. I'm pretty involved in the schools, and the 4 times I've observed this is Career Day, Watchdogs, Chess Club, and most importantly in the parent-teacher conferences. And Steve Jobs once said, we didn't hire experts to tell them what to do. We hired experts so that they can tell us what to do. And one of the things I love is the amount of autonomy that the teachers appear to have, and also the ones who are coordinating other events. So when we did Career Day, my wife and I, we asked how this came about, and it was one of the teachers who had the idea, and it got promoted through, and it happened. I asked the same thing about Watchdogs, and it was somebody's idea from a prior school they'd been in, and that got propagated through. And then Chess Club was Dr. Barry, who doesn't even know how to play chess, and he just started it. And I told him he must believe in God because God sent me, because I'm a chess junkie, and you have to have an academic when you're dealing with a chess club. But most importantly with the teachers, right? So I go to the parent-teacher conferences not to find out how my kid's doing. I'm a helicopter parent. I know how my kid's doing most of the time, except Dr. Hill will tell me that I don't, but that's okay, because kids get away with all sorts of things. I acknowledge that. But more importantly, I want to spy on the teachers. And I love how open the schools are. But I talk to the teachers, and I really grill them on their academics and what they're doing. And they actually have way more freedom over what they do than I would have thought. And I brought this up at Coffee Talk last night, and Dr. Hill said that's actually a thing, that throughout the summer they coordinate the academics and so on. But my observation has been that a number of the teachers, when I'm really saying, how much do you get to set, and why is that? And I know what they're teaching my kid, because I grill my kid, and I can map it to the teachers. And there are particular domains where I have specific expertise. I have a master's in computer science, and I'm just an academic junkie, so I study a lot of things. And I'm actually impressed at how often the teachers are actually on the cutting edge of some of the thinking that's going on. And I've observed this in the way they set their curriculum, in the way it propagates through my sons and how they tell me about what they're learning in school. And I'm very impressed, particularly with the mathematics, and some of the stuff that I know I didn't learn as a grade schooler, now that I have a master's degree in a computing mathematical field. So bottom line is, across the board, I love it, and I also think it contributes to retention and motivation for the teachers, which is something we talked about beyond just pay. At the coffee talk, we were talking about that last night. You still have to hold everyone to the high standards, I get that. And in my day job, I have the same problem. I work in a financial institution. We have to protect your money, we have to protect your data. At the same time, you have to be innovative because your competitors are. It's a tricky balance, right? So everyone has to deal with this. I'm just very impressed so far with all the grilling of the teachers and the folks that I've worked with in the schools and how much autonomy they seem to have. So my thought is this, I'd like to see that continue. I'm very impressed and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Okay, not seeing anyone else in the boardroom. Alexis, is there anybody online?
Mr. President, there are no individuals with their hand raised, and there are no questions in the queue.
Okay, without objection then, going to close audience to visitor. Next item is the consent agenda. And before I have a motion, is there anything that needs to be pulled?
Financial and the student enrollment, please.
So we're going to pull. Any others to be pulled? Okay, is there a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda items 4C, food service report, and 4D, human resources report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention? Motion carries 900. Is there another motion?
I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda item 4A, financial report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Mr. Panos. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Panos?
Ms. Batchelder, a couple of items here, just clarification of it. I don't quite understand. For example, athletic coaches' expenditures so far are nothing, and what do we have up here? Pupil transportation and safety, which is a $3.7 million item. We spent $27,000 so far. Are we getting a good deal here, or what?
I wish, right?
I mean, are we just late in paying our bills? What's the story?
We're not late. So what happened, so I'll take each one separately. So the coaches, we do not pay athletic stipends out until the end of the season. So the fall season just ended, so you will see that expense on November's
Okay.
expense report. And regarding transportation, no, we haven't paid that bill, just because of everything. I did
Some
ask.
people might agree not to pay.
No, but I asked the transportation coordinator actually to at least process September, because we do have to pay, obviously. But no, I honestly, I just was waiting.
Okay, thank you. I just thought we'd clarify that, that's all. Otherwise, it looks pretty good.
Any other questions on 4A? Seeing and hearing none, call the question. All those in favor of approving 4A, the financial report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Another motion, Mr. Lockhart?
I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda item 4B, enrollment report.
Is there a second?
The second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Mr. Panos. And Mr. Panos, you have
Yes.
crack at
Yeah,
that.
thank you. I want you to just open up to the enrollment, for the Clover Street.
Clover Street?
Yeah.
No, if you see most of these at this level have 17, 18, maybe 20 depending, what school you're in, except the fifth grade for Clover Street touches up against the old standards, probably the limits of about 24 students. Do we have a crowding problem there at the fifth grade in Clover Street?
When you say crowding problem?
Yeah, I
what
mean,
do
you
They're
know,
higher
it's
class
20
sizes.
I guess we can handle this, certainly 24, but, I know that was very common 20 years ago, but it's not common today. It's more on, our typical average is around 20. Is there, obviously, if you added another one, it might, if we added another teacher there, that would take out, and it would drop them up. But is this an issue here of overcrowding that we have, or we're facing? I don't know.
No, it's not an issue of overcrowding. So Dr. Hill and I look at enrollment versus FTEs every year, especially at the elementary level. And then it goes back to the principal on how he or she wants to distribute the FTEs by grade. So
Okay.
what you'll see sometimes is they will move an FTE to another grade if there's a bigger pocket of students versus another. But in this instance, because it was grade 5, because it's the highest of the grade, they did not want to take and make grade 3 or grade 4 higher class sizes because they're younger students and because of the pandemic. So the choice was to have this, and I'm saying choice because unfortunately our principal currently did not make that choice.
I see.
And we have heard, that it's a lot for them. So we've already been in discussions on how we could possibly offer assistance by hiring at least a long-term sub for the remainder of the year to just help that grade a little bit. Instead of hiring a whole FTE.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, if you hired somebody, would they kind of float between the classes, occasionally helping different?
No, it would, no, if we do hire, and Principal Lee and I haven't been able to connect back on this topic this week yet. I'll be talking to her tomorrow. Because we have a FTE at Sage that is not filled, so we were using that, money and funding. But if we're able to hire, we will keep that in grade 5.
So would you pull some kids from the other classes?
Correct. And that's possibly
Would they then teach kind of all 4 core areas versus somebody teaching language arts and social studies versus, I know they often have it.
Yeah, so
one teacher teaches language arts and social studies, and one math and science.
Right, so this teacher would teach everything. And we have, some of these teachers already do that depending on
Okay.
grades.
Thank you. Any other questions on this?
No.
Okay. So,
Budget process.
Don't spend any money, though.
We don't spend money.
okay, we'll vote on this. All those in favor of approving 4B, the enrollment report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 900. The next is the approval of minutes. Are there any of the 2 minutes that would have to be anybody wants to pull one of the 2 minutes? Okay, is there a motion?
There is. I move the Board of Education approves the minutes of the October 18th, 2022, 7 p.m. regular meeting and the November 1st, 2022, 6:30 p.m. special meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the minutes of October 18th and November 1st, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 900. At this point, we come to our student representative report. Abby?
Good evening. So our good news from Windsor High School, Spirit Week at Windsor High produced new levels of school spirit and pride, culminating in a very enthusiastic pep rally that the senior class won. Spirit Week produced a higher school morale than typically present in the community, so that's very good. That said, I'd like to shift the attention to the Board of Education's dress code. When I was on the School Governance Council in the 2020 to 2021 school year, I brought the issue to the attention of the council. Action Club, a social justice group within Windsor High School, likewise identified the dress code as a policy they wanted to address on account of equity issues. Unfortunately, neither of these efforts produced any results. Now I bring this before the Board of Education with the aim that the dress code be reviewed and altered where appropriate to ensure a fair and equitable dress code, taking into account coming data. Policy 5132, that being the Board of Education's policy on dress code, was adopted in June 1993. This is nearly 30 years that this policy has been in effect. Furthermore, according to the Windsor Public Schools website, it has not been reviewed since 1998. This outdated policy must be updated to become more current, fair, and equitable. Action Club has once again taken on the dress code for the 2022 to 2023 school year. They will collect data from students, faculty and staff, parents and community members, and district leaders. I am working alongside the club and will relay these statistics in later meetings in efforts to provide a base of facts for the updating of Policy 5132 on behalf of Windsor students and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items you want to talk about? Anybody have questions for our student representative? Mr. Panos?
Would your colleagues consider a uniform look? If not a uniform, but a uniform look, sort of thing. Are you familiar with the term uniform look for in other words, where it wouldn't be a uniform, but it would be similar dress for all, and therefore, might think makes things a lot easier in selecting what you have to wear. The board considered this about 10 years ago. We went through, oh boy, it must have been several months on it, and eventually never really, it couldn't come to, we didn't get the 5 votes. I thought we had 6 or 7, but a few turned against it, and some parents came out and was saying, I want to dress my kids the way I want to, and things of this nature. So it didn't pass. But maybe at the high school, it would be okay to do that. But maybe you could take that back and suggest it to them. Do you have any thoughts on it right now?
I'm in the AFJROTC, so I'm no stranger to uniform and uniform look. Dress is a very important mode of self-expression. What we are looking for is not so much radical change of the dress code. There are legitimate policies on the dress code. One that we should look at to change, however, is the mask policy on the dress code. So item 2B on the 5132 policy prohibits all headwears, including all masks. Now, COVID-19 pandemic, of course everyone was wearing masks, and yet this policy was not reviewed and put out of effect, even though people were wearing masks all the time. Now people are continuing to wear masks, and technically speaking, this is against the dress code, but it should be up to their personal choice whether they want to wear a mask and protect themselves, if that's their prerogative, against any type of disease that they don't want to get.
Okay. Please, Dr. Hill.
So, thank you, but that one would not be necessarily the board policy. Masks that the board would address were masks that were for more nefarious things, and there is no deadline or statute of limitations on that. These masks are based on health, options in our country. At one point, because of the pandemic, it became mandatory, but then it became optional. And there are things that I said at the beginning of the year, when it comes to COVID and other health issues, they're not going to go backwards. So you're going to, as we go out to stores, as we go to various places where people congregate, you will see people wear masks or people not wear masks. So moving forward, that's just going to continue to be people's option. And those are the health masks, but not masking in schools. I can tell you multiple states, no schools approving people wearing masks, like, because there were kids who, in 1993, I was teaching, they wanted to wear the bandana mask. And it's like, no, you can't wear those masks. So that's why you didn't see it. I'm not saying 1993 was cool to not look at it, but that's why you wouldn't see that. So other areas, the board should definitely be open to that, but the masking, I just want to be clear for the public, that's health concerns. And so people have the option all over the country, I would pretty much say all over the world, to wear their mask where they choose. And some institutions here in our country right now, they're 100% you have to wear a mask to enter those facilities. Like they're not changing their rules. So if you want to go in those facilities, you have to wear a mask. But that, again, that was all based on CDC and our health issues. That's what that was for.
And something else, as I mentioned, the Action Club is currently working to collect data and statistics from students, parents, the community, district leaders. So as that comes out, we'll figure out the general consensus of what really does need to be looked at, and then that can be deliberated and debated within the Board of Education. And I will bring those statistics in later times.
Yes, thank you. I think I remember bringing the issue being brought up, and some had to do with an equity issue of women versus men. And I like the way you sounds like, you know, that you so far you've been trying to fight City Hall, but I like the way you're going about it, getting the research done, figuring out what people want, what the concerns are. You know the section of the policy that it affects, and as you know, we have a policy committee, so it could be something we entertain, but when we entertain something as broad as dress code, it probably would be not just your suggestions, we probably would be opening it up to a larger thing within the whole town. But that's not to say, you know, that can't be done, and I would encourage your group that you've been involved with to try to stay at it. Mr. Lockhart.
Yes, I would encourage the student rep to get with Mr. Halleck. Mr. Halleck was actually the one that brought forth that proposal and to the committee. So we heard him thoroughly on those recommendations that he brought forth. So instead of reinventing the wheel, maybe your committee can also work with Mr. Halleck and use some of the data he presented as well as his presentation, and then give you a baseline of where the last time the board actually discussed this matter.
Mr. Wollaston?
Sure.
Mr. Wollaston and Mr. Panos.
All right, so I was just going to say, I don't know, I'm not really playing devil's advocate, but I'm just trying to maybe clarify what you said a second ago. So it sounds like to me she's saying that, not that she's trying to do something radical or new, but maybe the wording can be, the language can be maybe wordsmithed a little better to fit the times that we're in right now. Not necessarily saying, like Dr. Hill said, we want bandanas, but maybe to include in the policy masks, like health mask or whatever, the surgeon mask or whatever the proper term is for the masks that are allowed, or whether we put N95s allowed or whatever the specific term is for the mask in the language. That, I mean, even though it did come down from the state, so we have to follow it regardless, maybe she's just getting at our policy should probably reflect what we're actually doing a little better, which I don't think is too far-fetched.
Thank you. Mr. Panos?
Yeah, maybe you could share that, you know, what their suggestions are right now. With us, I'd like to get a look at it. It'd be interesting, you know, but I agree with Mr. Wollaston that maybe just some slight changes that are required for this, but it would also be interesting to know what, say, what the teachers think about the, you know, about the state of things at the high school. And what is their opinion? What are the VPs? That'd be very much interested. And so we have to look and see if they're doing, if they're, you know, if dress is distracting, for example, you know, it distracts from learning. So, you know, that's one of the aspects, you know. So I'd be curious to see it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Taylor and then Ms. Claes.
So I was a Windsor Public School middle schooler in 1993. And I just recall at that time of middle school and high school, the dress code being very, it depended on who it offended. And I think that because oftentimes that policies can be so vague, I think what she's asking, or what her committee or group is asking, is that we make it so that it's a situation where, to Mr. Panos's point, distracting to whom? So I want to make sure.
What? Excuse me?
Distracting to whom? Because we want to make sure that we're not going down the slippery slope of, because something could be distracting to me, but not distracting to you, So we just be very careful. I'll just give you an example. Tupac song, I Get Around. And there was T-shirts that said, I Get Around on it. And we were told, students were pulled into like the office, and they had to make the shirt go inside out. There's nothing in the policy that says that they can't have that type of shirt on, but it was the 90s, and the policy was whatever the policy was, and it offended a teacher, and they had to change, or whatever the case was. So I just feel like when we're updating, or if we decide to go that route, to just be very careful, because again, something could be suggestive or something could be offensive to some people but not to others. But we need to be just careful with this subject. I'll say that.
I don't mind being offended.
We can testify to that.
Ms. Claes.
I just was going to ask your group to please let us know more about how you're defining equity and whether it's a policy problem or an application problem, and please help us understand where it is and when you get that information. And also, please make sure you have a clear articulation about whether or not you're talking about uniform or uniform dress, because I'm sure that's going to come as well. So just so we understand what the students are thinking when you're bringing your data back. So thank you.
And something I will say, the most glaring statistic in this situation is that this hasn't been reviewed, and it was approved in 1993. And so whether or not changes are made, it's still something that's good to be reviewed either way, make slight changes to clarify things.
Yeah, it hasn't been changed since '93. It has been discussed, though.
In 1998.
No, Mr. Halleck,
Mr. Halleck and I.
just a couple years
It
ago.
was about almost 6 years ago. 4 or
So
5
it's
years
the Windsor Public Schools website that hasn't been updated since 1998.
Well, no,
No, it hasn't changed.
never-
It's just been discussed.
No, discussion here and amongst board members is not reviewed in a policy
Right,
situation.
right.
So it hasn't been reviewed since 1998. That's the formal process.
Right.
Discussion is just
Right.
discussion.
It never got
It
further.
never got to that, but not got to that point.
Right, didn't go to policy.
Well, it brings up a good, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. Is there a uniform dress for gym? Is there a uniform? No, you just wear what you want, casual?
Sneakers.
Okay. Things have changed. Thank you.
I think that's suggestion.
Wear sneakers, right?
James hasn't taken it yet.
Suggested.
Okay, the next item, without seeing any other hands, the President's Report. We had many wonderful Veterans Day celebrations all through Windsor schools. As most of you all know, we hold schools in Windsor on Veterans Day. It's a great opportunity to teach students about the meaning of the day and the sacrifices of those who serve. I know the board was out in force. I was at Windsor High School with Ms. Taylor. Ms. Cantor was at JFK. Mr. Halleck at Sage, Mr. Panos at Pequannock. I don't know, Jolene at Oliver Ellsworth, I'm assuming. Yes. And it was a great day throughout Windsor. I know we made the ABC local news, Channel 8, and I was able to tape that myself when I heard about it. I think I'd first seen it on our social media, who was ahead of the news coming out. Vice President Lockhart and I attended the National Junior Honor Society induction at Sage Park. This was a great event to honor students who not only are getting good grades, but excel in the areas of leadership, citizenship, service, and character. Shout out to our Windsor High School Board Rep, Abby, who's leaving. I didn't ask you to leave yet.
We don't look like we should.
I was going to, after I mention this, being named the Rotary Student of the Month for October. Abby, if you'd like to leave now, you can.
I have places to
Yeah. And we're going to miss you at CABE, so sorry. Vice President Lockhart and Dr. Hill and several others from Central Office and I attended the ribbon cutting at Clover Street for their new playscape and playground. The Windsor High School Band, under the direction of Mr. Monroe, was there as well. It was a great collaboration to get this project done. Kiwanis and Rotary Clubs helped out as well as part of the playground. The PTO, Mr. Farr, and other staff of Clover were very intimately involved, as well as a lot of work by our central office staff. Mr. Lockhart christened the new tunnel slide, diving headfirst down the slide to the cheers of the student. He ended up quite wet. I know Dr. Hill took some good pictures there, but he didn't go down the slide. The board had its self-evaluation workshop on November 1st, assisted by Nick Caruso from the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, CABE, and this process will help us focus on certain areas based on the responses that people had in the feedback. So I found it a very helpful exercise for us as a group. The CABE conference is this weekend, and it's great that most of the board is able to attend, and Dr. Hill as well. It's a great opportunity to attend relevant workshops and discuss issues with board members across the state. And I believe we do still have a couple of students who will be attending. Windsor will also be receiving 2 awards, a Level 2 Board of Distinction Award, thanks to Sally Brown again for assisting me with the application, and thanks for the board for unanimously approving the submission. The board will have its picture taken with the Commissioner of the State Department of Education at 1:50 on Friday. Mr. Wallison, 1:50 sharp. The second award is for Windsor Public Schools. It's an award for excellence in communication, winning in 2 categories, social media and website. And thanks so much for Gianna Gill, who seems to be everywhere throughout the district. She probably, I don't know if she's got a Fitbit, but she probably gets a lot of steps in going from school to school. And thanks Sally, too, for helping with that, writing that submission as well. On November 2nd, several of us on the board attended the Staff Service Award recognition dinner. It was great to be able to see staff in an informal setting and to honor those who've been with the district for a number of years, including 2 who've been with Windsor Public Schools for 35 years. That is my report. I don't know if there's any questions. Seeing and hearing none. Go next to school liaison reports in Windsor High School. Ms. Taylor, sorry.
Are you?
No, we didn't. Yeah, right. I guess you put that ahead, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. I move that the Board of Education send item 7B to the Curriculum Committee or Policy Committee for discussion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And just for the public, the topic is 7B is discussion on Windsor High School credit recovery classes.
And discussion.
Now, the background of this is the item was placed on the agenda at the request of Mr. Panos with the support of Mr. Fury and Mr. Lockhart as the executive committee. Mr. Panos wishes to have a discussion of student assessment in the Windsor High School credit recovery classes with a possible referral to the policy committee. But as we derive this, we don't know if after discussion if Mr. President will send it to policy or send it to curriculum. It depends on how this discussion goes.
So I'd like not to vote on this then and just have the discussion first.
That is.
And
That's why
so-
Dana's on.
okay.
I'm not sure.
So Dr. Hill, I don't know if you want to begin this discussion?
Sure. I'm going to turn it over to to Dr. Oliver and to Principal Parker, and we have Ms. Fudge online as well to answer your questions.
Yes, good evening. So we do not have a presentation prepared for you. It was our understanding that you, the board was going to facilitate a discussion. However, we are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, I believe, Mr. President, that's correct.
Okay.
I think it's just a brief discussion here, and then a proposal to send it to policy or curriculum.
Okay.
And have it. So if you don't mind, I'll.
Yes,
I'll,
why
you
don't you
know,
start then?
The issue here is the software course, which is called Credit Recovery, and by Edgenuity, I believe it is called.
That's
And some years ago, this was introduced. It came in as part of, just, of course, I just heard about it. The board did not consider it, or wasn't brought to the board, I think around 2008. I don't know if you were here after you know. And, Principal Sills was high school principal, and the idea was, well, what can we do in order to help people take the basic courses and make sure that they can graduate? So they introduced this, and, it didn't stir anything up. It just said, well, it was very successful. And I think several of us on the board just took it for granted that there was some sort of feedback to the main course that somehow tied it with it. And until, it just kind of occurred recently, as the presentation was made by Ms. Fudge, that, gee, how do we assure that it is done? How do we validate that this software course is equivalent to it? And so whether it's through some process or other, or having them take the midterm and the final or something like this, I think that's the idea. That I think the board should send it and consider this, and just so that we're sure that we're passing kids who really know the material. We're not doing them any good by graduating them, but they really don't know Algebra 1, and so I'm sure that they learned something, but is it enough? And so that's the purpose of the request. Is there any?
Ms. Claes.
Ms. Claes?
I think it's a fair question. To me, it's a curricula question, so I can see the curricula committee discussing this to make sure that there is, get a presentation on what exists in the testing, and then if it's rigorous enough, and then making a recommendation to the board. But I think it's a fair question to look at. But I don't have an answer for that. But I think to me, it's a curriculum committee question.
Mr. Lockhart?
I agree with Ms. Claes. I believe it's a curricular question, but what I think I'm hearing Mr. Pano say is that he also wants to know, is the rigor of the software the equivalent of a midterm and a final assessment? I think I'm hearing that piece as well. So obviously, if it goes to curricular and it answers that piece or doesn't answer that piece, it may be something that if it doesn't rise to that level, it might be something that we refer to policy and make it a requirement that if you're going to be doing credit recovery during the summer, there needs to be some type of formative assessment at the midway point and at the end, like you would do a regular course. I think that's what I'm hearing Mr. Panos ask for some type of clarity on
We're
that.
in agreement with that, are we? Yeah. Yes.
So I believe this, Mr. President, it would be my recommendation, I think I speak for the caucus on this one, that we recommend that this be sent to curriculum for initial review, with possibility of being sent back to you and possibly going to policy as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Only one of the questions I have before we do that is how many courses, different courses, could be taken in this credit recovery format?
Good question.
Funny you should ask. So in preparation for the meeting, I actually did print off the 2022-23 Connecticut course list for Edgenuity, which is now Imagine. Long story short, there are many Edgenuity courses available. However, we scale that down, and we typically offer a subset in each of the core areas, such as math, science, social studies, English, PE, health.
And I somehow recall a room where kids are looking at computer screens, and there's a number of teachers in there. Usually, if there's students doing math, there'd be at least one who's qualified to answer math questions to help them and assist them. Is that still how it's done?
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Parker, but yes, that's how it's done. So basically, our credit recovery model is just that. We have content area teachers. So for example, we would hire science, sometimes 2 science teachers, a math teacher, an English teacher, a social studies teacher, and then they would be responsible for the courses that fall within their particular domains. And what that allows us to do is to offer a wide variety of courses for students that need the support over the summer. So for example, in the same room, you could have one student taking zoology, another student taking biology, for example.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Galinsky, and then Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. Is there a limit to how many of these classes a student can take? And is that per year, or is that per your high school career?
So technically, no. So when we look at board policy, no, there is no limit. However, of course, we, try to encourage students to stay on the traditional pathway.
Thank you.
Ms. Cantor?
That was my question as well. I wanted to know how many times you could take it and through what years for the courses. Like, can you take it repeatedly, or recovery, or do you have to go back and retake the class?
So I think that's a good question. I think it depends. So we kind of have like a threshold where, so for example, if a student did not do well, like they're under 40%, we would ask that they take the entire course over as opposed to like just credit recovery. So credit recovery is intended for the student who is kind of just didn't pass, like that kind of threshold, the border threshold, right? But if they're too low, then we say, you don't need credit recovery, you need to take the entire course over.
Mr. Lockhart?
I'll take my second bite here. So when individuals are taking these courses, is there any feedback from the teacher that taught the course throughout the semester or the whole academic year that provides feedback that they did well here, need support here in order to get them over the hump, or they just got to do the whole course fresh, cold turkey?
So that would be amazing, but unfortunately, you know as well as I know, the last day of school, many teachers, the next day they're on the beach, or, they have their personal obligations. So in most cases, I would say no, that does not happen. However, there is a placement exam in Edgenuity that would allow the summer teacher to get a better understanding of the standards the student did master versus the standards the student did not master.
So to piggyback on her response, I think I keep hearing the term artifacts with teachers. They when they're building their binders or whatever they're doing to assess their students, they're building exactly where these students are progressing from point A to point B. And I would imagine that that information could be something that could be easily passed off to the summer instructors to give some type of a historical perspective of how this child performed throughout the academic year, to see where they're high, see where they're low. I just don't know what the process is. And I can understand last day of school, people are fleeing, but at the same time, these teachers might have critical information to help these students. They might be great for the first 2 marking periods, and they struggle with the last 2 marking periods. And so if we're just brushing over stuff they already know and not getting to the meat and potatoes, then, they're not going to succeed, and then they're going to be asked to take the class again. So.
And that does happen. And just the reality is there's a very short turnaround time because we have to wait until the end of course grade in order to start our process of identifying students that need to take the course and notifying families and registering. So I absolutely hear your point, but, there are some challenges with that as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just
Mr. Panos?
If, you know, at curriculum, perhaps you could also share a little bit, you know, of the software, just to show the folks what it looks like. I think we'll see if Mr. Lockhart can do the math. You know, what are the roots? What is it? The square root thing? Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Tell me this. What is the formula right now? Can you?
I'll be willing to challenge you on that exam.
All right, let's see. Tell me right now.
Can they do this offline, not in my meeting?
Yes. Any other questions?
With your calculator?
Not seeing any other question. Is there a motion?
I think there's a motion on the floor. I think the recommendation, through you, Mr. President, I think that this should be sent to the curriculum committee, if you find that acceptable.
Okay, so a motion to move this to curriculum committee. Is
Yes,
there a second?
I move that we refer this to the curriculum committee and thereafter to bring it back.
Agreement on this, yes.
Okay. It's a motion by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, motion carries 900 to send this to the curriculum committee.
So when this goes to the curriculum committee, how would those members that are not part of the curriculum committee, how are we able to send our feedback or concerns through our representative that's on the actual committee? How do you see that happening, Mr. President?
I think that was done in this past round, and I think that's a good process, that obviously anybody can speak in the initial audience to visitor,
Right.
but in order to help prepare for that,
Right.
I would hope through the representatives, which would be Ms. Claith, Ms. Taylor, or Ms. Galinsky, to send your comments through them with as much detail or rationale so that they understand where each member is coming from.
Yeah, the only thing is that, of course, we don't have an audience to visitors at the end, but you can't do anything with that anyway at the end of the meeting.
It has to come here.
Yeah, it would have to come here, yeah.
Right.
But I think you're right, yeah.
He's going to take multiple bites at the apple.
Okay.
There's not much apple left around after you're done.
Item 7C, school liaison reports. The first one is Windsor High School, Ms. Taylor, and then Mr. Wollaston.
Thank you, President Fury. I'm going to keep it brief. To piggyback on what you said, the Veterans Day program at the high school was wonderful, well-attended panel of amazing veterans, some of which were Windsor Public School staff. From the marching band to the choir, just a lovely program, always a great job done by the staff there. Upcoming things to make note of, get your yearbook orders in. And for senior parents, you can do a senior spotlight family message to them for the yearbook. The due date for that is December 31st, and it's coming up pretty quick. It's always cute. My mom did mine. There's a fall drama production this weekend. I'm really trying to get there, but we'll be at CABE. That is on Friday evening, and on Saturday is, I believe, a day show. Don't ask me what the play is, but it's I hear it. They've worked so hard, and it's supposed to be a really, really good show. I believe it is $5 for students and $15 for adults, and I think children under a certain age are free. Last but not least, just reminding folks that next week is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we met last night for those, well, the people in the SGC, they weren't, the Student Governance Council, they weren't able to attend the coffee talk, and there was some gruntled opinions about that, but I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for them to attend. And this is our second meeting with the new group, and from what I'm seeing from this group of people that we have in our SGC is that they're very determined and willing to organize and come to the board and speak and advocate for themselves as well as in those meetings. They're not really just in the meetings for business as usual. As you've seen, we had Nurse Van come out today and I expect that we may see more people come and speak throughout audience to visitors about some of the topics they feel that are very important to them. The big ticket item being food right now. And there were other things discussed as well in the meetings, and as they come forward and use their right to audience to visitors, I feel like we will end up with a very vocal school governance council this time around. And it's pretty exciting to see, because it's nice to see when the school governance council interacts with the board, and then the student rep is interacting with the students we have in the school governance council, because one hand interlocked with each other, we all build each other up, and we bring a better and stronger perspective, and it creates a wider perspective, and allows us to all understand and problem solve together. So it was really good to sit through that meeting. A lot of willing people, and I'm excited to see what comes out of that group.
Thank you very much. Questions for the high school? Seeing none, we'll move on to Sage Park Middle School. First, Mr. Halleck, and then Ms. Clace.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was already talked about, I attended the Veterans Day Assembly at Sage Park Middle School on Friday. It was a great event. The speakers were great with our students, teaching them about what it means to be a veteran, as well as the different career opportunities in the military, among other things. So I want to thank all our speakers and everyone who put on that event. It was a great event, and I was proud to be part of it. On Thursday, November 17th at 6 p.m., there will be a PTO meeting in the library. Report cards for Q1 will be coming out on Power School on the 22nd of this month. There's going to be a social emotional learning day that's going to be coming up in December, so stay tuned for more information on that. Sage Park is also doing a giving tree again this year. Staff will be collecting funds and gifts for families that are in need. And there's going to be a fall sports award coming up tomorrow, I believe, November 16th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at Sage Park. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clace?
I just have one ad. I just want to remind the board and anybody in the community that 988 launched, which is our suicide and mental health crisis hotline. 3 numbers, very easy to remember. It's just something I think that would be good for our families and students to know, much like 211 or any of those, but this is specifically for suicide and mental health crisis awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Sage Park? Seeing none, we'll go to Clover Street School. Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you, sir. To be brief, I definitely enjoyed the ribbon cutting for the new playground. That was a very exciting time. It made me feel like a young man back in Bellevue Square. Very beautiful playscape, so congratulations to everyone that had a part in that. Recently, the Clover Street School also had a very successful literacy night as well. I think there was a lot of things going on last night that some stuff got conflicted around, but overall, everything, it was successful. And last but not least, congratulations to all of the Clover Street employees that receive awards at the Service Award Dinner. And we actually have one gentleman that actually was awarded for 35 years. So, Mr. Farr, congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you. Any questions for Clover Street?
Did you get muddy when you?
Yes, and yes, it was wet and muddy. I knew that going in, and I eagerly ran up the slide.
Against
I went
Then he ran home.
Totally against the rules, that's it.
I'm trying to live like you, Mr. Panos.
Any other questions for Clover Street? John F. Kennedy, Ms. Cantor.
Thank you. I attended the JFK Veterans Day Assembly. It was absolutely beautiful. Dr. Pierce was there with his fancy fiddlers. They did an outstanding job, as always. He's such a great asset to the school. Mr. Mercier's choir was there, and they sang songs. They read poems. They honored their veterans. It was really beautiful, and it's nice to see all these kids learning all about the veterans and what they've done for our country, why we live here freely. Again, Thanksgiving is next week. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they're off. Don't send them to school on Wednesday. A lot of people have Thursday and Friday off, but not Wednesday, so don't send your child to school on Wednesday. And then the progress reports are going to be posted on November 29th, and the book fair starts then. So the book fair will be held during school hours and during conference times, and the conferences will be held on November 30th. Those are the afternoon conferences. December 1st are the evening conferences, and December 2nd are the afternoon conferences. And on December 8th, they'll be retaking pictures, and then lunches and breakfast meals are good through the end of November 30th, meaning that they're free. And JFK has a really nice website that you can go to, and it's all student-focused news, and they give a great deal of detail on that. They talk about the weather, the precipitation, all events, like the sports, all different topics, and I think it's a really nice site. It's www.youtube.com. /watch?V=8 capital S lowercase f 64 lowercase CP capital G
Put her up on the site.
It's very, very good. I think they are awesome.
What was that third number?
I'm not telling you. And then they have a monthly assembly where they do positive reinforcement behavior for a student of the month. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Any questions for JFK? Mr. Wallison?
So what's after the first slash?
We cut off his mic.
Look at the link.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
From
kidding.
Ms. Zena. Thank you.
Order in the court. Okay. Oliver Ellsworth, Ms. Galinsky.
Thank you. Just like all the other schools, Oliver Ellsworth had a Veterans Day Assembly, but due to capacity limitations within their gym, they actually had to split it into two. So it was a wonderful assembly. I attended the morning session, but they already have changes and improvements that they're going to make for next year to try to make it just into one assembly, because not all the veterans can come to both. And so I felt that they felt like they were almost doing their students a disservice because they couldn't get as many as they could. But don't worry, because they're already like really excited about improvements that they're going to do for next year. But it was still beautiful. My kids came home talking about it. So they did a wonderful job. And that was the first in-person one since pre-COVID. So that was really good to see. A family resource coordinator has been officially hired, which is great because that means Watchdogs is going to start again. They do not have an exact date, but that will be determined very soon, they said. We've been talking about the School Governance Council within all the other schools, and so I'm going to put in my little plug here that OE is having theirs on Thursday. It's a virtual meeting, so everyone can attend. You do not have to be a parent at Oliver Ellsworth. You do not have to have a student there. It can be anyone from the community. And if you want to know how to go to that, I'm not going to give you the code. But I can tell you, go to windsorct.org, click on Oliver Ellsworth, and there's the newsletter. You're going to find everything you need in there. And lastly, parent-teacher conferences, please sign up. The teachers actually want to meet the parents of these students. It's so important. And again, you can find the link. It's myconferencetime.com. Again, you can find that through the OE newsletter. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for OE? And thank you for reminding parents the importance of coming to conferences and finding out about your student. Last but not least, Pequannock School, Mr. Panos.
Thank you. Yes, I attended the Veterans Day celebration at Pequannock. I was very impressed by it. The students greeted the veterans as we filed out. because I'm a veteran, and so they stood aside with their teachers, and they each had little flags waving at us and on the ground. They very impressive how respectful and the behavior of the students was. I was amazed. And Principal Mahalko began it's obvious that they had been taught what this was about, something, and the students sang patriotic songs and read a poem and expressed their thanks to the veterans and the dads and others who were in attendance. And I and others spoke about the meeting of the Veterans Day at the time. We then went inside, and the students lined the hallways, and you can go around but you circle in school, so like they lined the hallways like you do on the streets and the side, and the veterans just walked down, paraded down the middle, just like it was a parade, and they all said thank you, and some gave me a little thank you thing all colored. I thought it was great, and they say that was amazing. So then I found out how difficult it was to talk about. I have grandchildren about this age, and I don't talk about serious things. And I tell you, it's rather difficult for an adult to speak to a second grader or something at this level. But they're up to quite a bit of it. I would just say they really were patriotic. I enjoyed it. And then each veteran was given a book to read and sent to a classroom. I sent it, I think Miss Holt, I think it was, and I enjoyed that. The kids were just very lively, asked questions and all that. Then there were trucks outside the National Guard. Unit came down with 3 trucks, and the kids were just, each class, a bunch of kids came out and they climbed up into the cab, and they were having you'd think it was Leonard Lockhart on a fire truck. And so now
what's in the water tonight?
So the Pequannock School, they're the usual thing with their. They have the conferences you're talking about here at November 30th, at the end of the month, and the report cards are available electronically November 29. I went to the PTO meeting. They talk about how they have the pies. They're distributing this Tuesday, November 22nd, and volunteers are still needed for the book fair. So they're quite active in the PTO. One thing that PTO people said to me was that they thought the SEL program was very valuable to them. So this is shout out to Mr. Batchelder over there. I thought that was quite interesting. So that's my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Pequannock? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to item number 8, the superintendent's report. Dr. Hill.
I normally say thank you, Mr. President. I don't know, I'm a little bothered tonight. So I'm like talking after 99 people. So this is my report. Like you guys said all my stuff. So we're going to change things for next month, public, because I'm not going to be sitting here going, oh yeah, I'm not a hype man. I'm the lead singer, not the hype man.
You should leave it out. We're all taking pictures of it.
Yeah, right. Everyone's like, so that, and I'm going X. I'm going X. I'm going X. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone said everything. So there was a many Veterans Day programs, as everyone said. I hope they all enjoyed it.
Are the schools
I owe
open on
Mr. Halleck
Veterans
an
Day?
apology. I did not see you at Sage Park, and so I didn't say your name on my weekly report. That was not, and I missed Ms. Cantor as well, because I didn't go to that school. But I know, I want to be able to say something about Veterans Day, so that's why I'm just apologizing. So, because clearly, Cape's happening this weekend too. Thank you guys for that very much. What else do I have here? Clover Street, the playground, playscape. Vice President Lockhart did slide in my absentia because I was not going down that wet, dirty slide in dry cleaning clothes. No, I'm not. But that's teamwork, right? He took one for the team.
He delegated.
The Office of Family and Community Partnership is sponsoring an event on Tuesday, November 29th, as part of their lifelong learning series, Cyberbullying and Social Media. In this session, families will learn how to support positive peer relationships for their child. For more information, and an RSVP, please go to our district website, windsorct.org. I had my third coffee talk last night, and Vice President Lockhart was present. The next coffee talk will be Tuesday, December 13th. I did say that's my oldest child's birthday. You got to say that, right, lady? From 10 to 11 a.m., and it'll be in the LP Wilson Auditorium. And everyone's also said, y'all know Thanksgiving's coming. They all said that too. So I really don't have much to talk about. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Batchelder to report on the air quality report for Oliver Ellsworth School, as well as address other issues that have been brought forward by board members. Okay? Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. So, I don't believe this has been talked about at the board level, but I could be mistaken throughout the years. But I know one of our teachers spoke last board meeting about possible mold at OE. So this is something that we have dealt with and known about. I shouldn't say known about. We've known about possible growth of mold. So every year we have done, Eagle Environmental comes in, because it's only during that summer into fall timeframe. And every year we have a consultant come out, do the check, and it's always been completely normal and follow ASHER standards. So this summer, it was definitely an increase to see, to look at. And the main cause of that, we've done many studies and assessments on OE this past few months. And what the main cause is the chillers that we currently have in some of the areas are the chillers that are right underneath the cork boards. And so what happens is the air is coming up. The air is so cold because the chiller at OE was replaced about 4 or 5 years ago, and it actually is oversized for the school. We knew it when that happened, but at that point in time, if you all remember, we had a rebate for the lighting and the OE chiller. So in order to be able to recoup for the town the money on the rebate for all of the LED lights, we had to rush this purchase for the OE chiller, which is oversized for the school. Since that time, we've always, whatever the word is that they use to control it, they have done. However, there is definitely an imbalance in that building. And then this past summer, the amount of pressure going up really just attacked on all of the cork boards in some of the classrooms. So it was visible mold growth that teachers saw. When we did the assessment right before school started, it came back that it was still within the levels that it can be, and all they recommended was if you see it, wipe it. If you see it, clean it. It's like anything at your house. It's like, it's similar to, a bathroom. If you don't clean it for a couple days or a week and you get that mold growth, you clean it. I understand that, it's worrisome when you see it. And so what we did at that point was we just replaced every corkboard in the building. So we just got rid of it. We cleaned it, and then we're like, no, we're just going to get rid. We got rid of everything, put new up, and we also sprayed with a adhesive that protects from mold on top of it. However, we still have the issue of the chiller being oversized. So 2 things have happened since over the past month. So one, we had Eagle Environmental come out again and do a much more in-depth testing, and the assessment overall is there's actually more mold spores outside of OE than there's inside. So again, you don't like to see it, but it's well under any type of ASHA ratings for mold growth. In addition to the testing, they stated, and I can share this with you, we just received this the other day, actually. So it states spore concentrations on the samples collected within the targeted classroom areas and cafetorium were below or similar to air samples collected in the main office, which was the main office in the gymnasium where no mold has been seen or grown. That was the constant that they used to compare it to, and it was less than any exterior mold samples that they took. All the interior samples contain similar species to the exterior samples, so more or less we are bringing it in to our schools. Everything that was tested, because there's over 100 types of mold spores, and all of them that were tested was the same ones that are directly outside of our classrooms, except for one type. Not even going to try to say the word because it's about 30 letters long. But what they did state is that the mold score for this statistic, the calculation of likelihood of the spores present on an indoor sample originating from the interior of the building due to active mold growth that it's not bringing in from the outside, they rate it from 100 to 300. Mold scores below 150 represent a very low probability of mold spores originating from the actual interior of the building. Anything above 250 is highly likely that something's in the building that shouldn't be there. Every single classroom that they tested was under that 150 mold score percent. So again, it came in that it's very low probability that any of these mold growths are originating from interior of the building. The other part of what we're also doing with the chiller is we have started hang on one second, I'm sorry. We brought in another vendor to look at the balancing of the air balancing for that school. And what they're seeing is that it is a lot lower than it should be. So they're going through every classroom, every area of the building and taking samples of the pressure. And once we get that final report, they will be able to then take the chiller part of it and the mechanics to be able to program it so it will be efficient and be the level it's supposed to be and work at a better, so we're not trying to put all of this cold air into the building, which is then going into any kind of material, fabric, and then that's how you have the growth of the mold when you have that moisture. Any questions?
Questions, Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. I do want to say, anytime you have warm, dark, and moist, that creates mold. You can also have it cold, but any type of moisture and the darkness will make it grow at a faster pace. I know kids have a lot of allergies, people do, and it's going to exacerbate them. And you'll have more sickness with that, I know that, and possibly more emergencies for those who have asthma and also related infections. Now, the other thing, as I'm wondering, is are you running a dehumidifier or multiple dehumidifiers in there to absorb the moisture? Because I know it's blowing cold air. You want the cold air, but you don't want the moisture. So
Right.
when it's blowing the moisture cold air, it's creating a bigger problem. So are you doing anything now to resolve some of that?
Oh, yeah, that's a normal operating procedure at OE for years.
So
So
you-
we have
you have
commercial-sized
dehumidifiers?
dehumidifiers going all summer long and into the fall.
When you say all summer long, is it 24/7 or is it just when they're
24/7.
school- Okay.
No, it's 24/7.
And are those emptied and cleaned? How is
Yep.
that maintenance? How is
Yes.
the maintenance done? Is that done like weekly? Are they checking it weekly or is it done monthly? I
It's
don't know.
definitely not done monthly, but I will check whether it's weekly or daily because it fills up. Yep.
Yeah,
It's
and
something that,
this summer, the humidity was so high, so I'm sure you had a lot more mold growth because of that.
yep.
And if you don't, even with an air conditioner, if you leave it set to 70 and the humidity is way up there, like 98%,
Right.
you're still going to get mold. You have to keep running it cooler and run a dehumidifier.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Ms. Taylor?
Quick question, because since we know that this is the case in the summer, is there any thoughts about moving our summer program out of there?
So every summer we look at, around this time actually, we look at where we're housing summer programming. So the issue is that depending on construction projects is dependent on what building we're going to use. So what we usually do, and the problem is the smallest kids, we can't have the equipment, the desks, everything at the high school level because they can't fit. I mean, the toilet, I mean, everything. So we always either do Pequannock or OE.
Ms. Clay?
This summer was by far the worst, and it was because of the temperature, and that's where this all came from. It's something that we've always had to deal with, but at this level, it was absolutely worse this summer than it's ever been.
Ms. Claes?
So I think you've done almost everything you can, and I know the reports are showing that we're in the range that's acceptable, but in reality, it's just one of those problems that if you're a person that's working in that environment, it's just uncomfortable and it just doesn't feel good. So I appreciate all the things we're doing, but I'm just wondering if it's time to think about doing, and I don't know if you do that in public schools, but if we could do like a request for information to see what kind of mitigation, what the cost of that would be long-term, rather than just rebalancing, or if that's going to really take care of it. I mean, we really need to figure out how much it's going to cost us to really take care of this problem long-term. It's just not appropriate for our school, for our kids and our teachers to be in that environment if we haven't exhausted every effort. And, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. But, I mean, we have staff running around trying to figure this out day to day. I just don't know I feel like we need a really good expert in to study and tell us what to do about it. So that's my suggestion. Maybe you did that already.
Dr. Hill and Mr.
So,
Lockhart.
I want to be clear that that's the report that you guys have. So just a reminder, because I know the public's hearing just the pieces, this is not a new issue. This is not new, years and years and years. But I want to be clear, and no one's going to like it. When you made a purchase, and you being the town of Windsor, you purchased something that was not made for that school. Now, people take that how they want to, but I want the public to know, you purchased something that wasn't for that school. For instance, so people understand, if you have a bedroom in your house, a standard bedroom, most of the time, a window air conditioner is going to be 5,000 BTUs. You put a 20,000 BTU air conditioner in your bedroom window. That machine, the chiller that she's talking about, was not made for the school. It was made for something else because they're custom made. We got it, the town of Windsor, because it was a deal. So you took something and you tried to retrofit it, so that's why you have the issue. The company that she's talking about trying to mitigate, it's the optimal is to absolutely replace the chiller, but we know what's going to happen with that townwide, right? That money is not going to happen. So that's why we're paying money now to this company did the first, like, we literally are going, what you're saying, Ms. Claes, is absolutely that. We're like, we got to exclude this, we got to exclude this, we got to exclude this. And then now we've gotten to the point after this latest round, and these aren't free efforts that are happening, to go in, and as Ms. Batchelder said, the professionals are going to make the adjustments. So basically, I visualize taking the 20,000 BTU air conditioner and make it operate like a 5,000 BTU air conditioner. But again, when you do certain purchases, you see what happens. You end up spending money on the other end. So you didn't save any money. And the ultimate fix, as she said, would be to take it out and replace it, which would be, I don't know the absolute cost of those chillers or chiller for
When
school,
when we've done it in the past, it's, between like $3 to $5 million to do a whole school.
Can they be repurposed? I'm sorry. Can they be repurposed to another building, another town building? Like, is that a possibility?
I believe so, yeah, because that's, well, I'm sorry?
Who else uses a chiller in the district?
Well, that was one of our last schools that we don't, we don't need one in our building.
That kind of chiller, we're just,
Sorry,
no, it's, that's what we're doing. That is a great question, because that's what we're doing. We're trying to, eliminate, and by process of elimination, which is, you're paying, and then the public needs to know that, you're paying every single step. And we are not comfortable, I know, like I said, as one of our staff members spoke, we're not comfortable with anyone looking at mold. I don't want to see mold, but, we're doing everything, and I need the public to know, because they only hear someone speak, and everyone goes, oh. It's not like we're not doing all the things we need to do. And the report shows we're within those legal terms acceptable ranges, just like your drinking water. There's acceptable levels of bacteria and everything else in your drinking water. People just don't talk about it, but that's what it is. And we're trying to get it to where we can get the machine to operate for that size building. So, but unfortunately, it takes all these other steps to make sure that that is the issue.
And I just want to point out too, because I know we're going into budget, so this is nothing that the Board of Ed budgeted for. This is coming out of our major maintenance, because it's not a project that we initiate. We don't fund our CIP, so we have to now spend our money that we wanted to do other things in our buildings on trying to figure out how to fix this.
Is there any way to swap it for a discount to get a smaller one?
Yeah,
And
that was.
sell it at its price of like
Yeah.
75% now?
It's funny you say that. It's funny sounding, but actually we tried to do that, and it's not. Mm-mm.
Anyone else? Questions? Mr. Lockhart.
I'm part of the statewide air quality task force, and what they're doing is taking bids, soliciting bids for any buildings within our state. The state's not going to pay for everything, but they're looking to see what are the worst issues we have within the state, and then if it has to be done something through legislation or something through budgetary. I think if we have not, I think this is something that we can put in front of the state and say, look, this is probably the worst building we have in our district. It's probably going to cost us roughly $4 or $5 million to replace this. What can the state do? So right now, the state legislature is looking at all of the air quality issues within the state of Connecticut, whether it's for infectious disease, whether it's for COVID, whether it's for hot schools don't get warm enough, whatever the issues are with air quality. They're looking at all of the schools within the state. So I'm not sure if it's too late for us to submit something to the state, but I think we should definitely try to put OE on that list for consideration. I do believe that process goes to the end of the month, if I'm not believe. I'll have to look at that, but this is not only a Windsor problem, this is a statewide problem for various reasons. We have some aged buildings, and we're trying to retrofit things that just doesn't fit to our buildings. So the next time we go down this path for any type of CIP issues, I think this is something that we can flag. And finally, what perked me up was major maintenance. We don't put a lot of money into major maintenance. I say that every single year. I always ask for $150,000 for each of the elementary schools. I always ask for $200,000 for the middle school, and I always ask for $250,000 for the high school for situations just for this, because you never know what may come down the pipe. And what I'm hearing the superintendent say is that this money is coming from other places, and we're going to exhaust our major maintenance money before we even get into the winter months. So if we have a catastrophic failure of one of our physical plants, like a boiler or something like that, where we're going to miss school for multiple days, that's expensive. That's an expensive miss, and we don't have the capacity to be shipping these bodies all over the place to try to keep up the curriculum. So there's just another mental note for me when we go into our budget process. You're going to hear me ask again, what did we spend for major maintenance? What are we currently spending? And what are the priorities that we need to focus on to make sure that we're well equipped to handle anything? Because right now, what I'm hearing is that we're not well-equipped to handle effectively the issue we got at OE. And this is not free labor that's being offered to us. The contractor is enjoying coming to the school every single time they come to the school because they know it's billable time material work. So, just food for thought for the group.
If I may too, so the air quality grants that you're referring to through the state, I was on a conference call about a month ago when they rolled it out, and the amount of legwork that has to be done to get that what the state wants is not even enough time within the allotted time they gave us. So, in my opinion, it's already earmarked for something else that the state is doing, so we don't even have enough days. I mean, that was the biggest complaint. If you didn't have a project already about over halfway through that referendum, you have no luck of getting it.
I don't speak unless you allow me to.
Mr. Lockhart, and then Ms. Cantor.
So I agree with you. That was one of the biggest complaints that I had during the several meetings that we had. It's almost like hurry up and get something in, but you're rolling out a great program, but at the same time, you're not giving the districts enough time to submit. So our point has always been, if a district truly wants something, just submit it. Force them to do something. Even though it may not get in at the appropriate time, there's going to be recommendations coming from this committee for the next incoming group of legislators saying that, look, we weren't given enough time. We're asking for you legislators to reconsider and to expand the amount of time that people are able to get these programs in. We don't know if there's going to be any change with the commissioners, saying that we have a new administration. He can change all his commissioners. So we don't know if Dr. Tucker is going to still be the Commissioner of Education. So once we know that's in place, and then have that person working with the legislators to advocate for all the buildings, we know it's an issue. I just encourage you, even if they tell you that you can't do it, whatever you can submit, just at least submit something. And then, the Board of Ed will have to work with our 2 senators and the 2 representatives that represent us in the CGA and push these efforts through them. So that would be my recommendation, based off what I know.
Ms. Cantor?
I would say the same thing. I would work towards that because it's not going to go away until you correct the problem. I know there's always mold, but you don't know what the long-term effects are going to be on all those people in the building. Right. In 20 years from now, there are a lot of people who have been exposed to sick buildings and dirty building syndrome and have a lot of illnesses from that. There are many buildings in this state, as Mr. Lockhart said, that one of the ones was a Xerox building in Hartford, right off of I-84 on Sigourney Street. Worked there 10 years. Yep, and it, and there are a lot of buildings like that here. Yep. So I would do what Mr. Lockhart said, even though if it's after the fact, and I would just, I know you don't have a lot of spare time, but I would just push it, just see what they can do for us, because you don't want to make people sick.
Any other questions? Ms. Glaze?
I think it's a great idea to do the grant. I think we should also consider, we know we're going into budget assumptions. We might want to consider putting something like this into budget assumptions. And I think it would be helpful if the town gave us a list of what capital improvement projects they have planned for Board of Ed buildings or Board of Ed things and include maintenance with those costs. I would like to see that for the next couple of years so we know what to plan for. Thank you.
Have you thought about sending the town a bill for remediation, since they're the ones who re-engineered the chiller?
No, and it would be politically devastating for me to really answer you right now, so, no.
Okay. Well, it's something that I can talk to the mayor about, and we, I like the idea of requesting what, and you may have it already, but I know we don't, what's on the CIP currently for our buildings and where they may be.
Yeah, I have all that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item under your report?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
I have
sorry.
one more thing. One of our sore spot. A sore spot, again, it's DACO. I did
Was
get
there
a.
any, was there going to be? that-
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just
I'm
finished the
sorry.
chiller. They
Oh, I'm
they have
sorry.
other
I thought-
parts.
wait, I'm sorry.
Nobody talked tonight.
Do you think DACO was going to come up? I think they read your mind.
Ms. Batchelor has quite a bit, so please to share.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll do DACO next. So one of the questions that came through was regarding our other districts facing the same type of thing. So what we did was actually truly just picked up the phone and started calling all of the other districts, to actually talk to a human, talk to someone to give us very specific information. So, so just to give you like a little recap of other districts. So in South Windsor, they're running 31 buses, so 31 routes, and they are 6 routes short. So what they're doing is very similar to us, and they're doubling up and or dropping and then sending the bus back out, which is then making students a half hour to an hour late for school every day. In East Hampton and Region 8, which is Andover, Marlborough, Hebron, they do 14 routes, and they are consistently 4 drivers too short. In Bloomfield, which is what's interesting is, and this is who we've been communicating with on the Transversa software, because they seem to had no problem transitioning to this software. And they're already on this software with no problem, and we're still fighting with them on this software. To the point that they actually, I think I already updated you guys that, yeah, we're back on MapNet. So in Bloomfield, they have 18 tiered routes, approximately 30 runs, and they are fully staffed.
Fully doesn't mean additional, it means just barely, do you know?
What was stated was, we have no driver shortages and haven't had it for 2 years.
They're DATCO?
Yep.
Yes, they're DATCO.
Bloomfield, yep.
Bloomfield DATCO.
Region 13, they have 18 routes, and they are short 3 to 4 drivers every day. And Middletown wouldn't even talk to us because, more or less, he said, I'm just constantly running around with a chicken with my head cut off, trying to deal with DATCO.
These were all DATCO though, right?
Oh, yeah, we only call
That's what I
DACA
thought,
regions,
okay.
yep. Or schools, excuse me. So, in piggyback to that, when I did speak with the legal counsel, just give me 1 second. What's her name?
For the next 6 years.
When I went through and actually compared routes to drivers since we started with DACO 5 years ago, so back in, and I just took November as the date each year. So in November 2019, we had 66 routes. November 2020, we dropped, now mind you, so that's now, we're in the pandemic. We dropped to 55 routes. So that means we only had 55 drivers when I say routes, because we are budgeted for 66. And that's how many buses they own in order to fulfill our contract. November 2021, we had 45. And now October this year, we have 44. So we've actually decreased the staffing by 1 from last year after they promised us that we would increase. And that's a decrease of, what, close to, 18 buses and 18 drivers that we have lost. Granted, we're not paying for it. However, this is what we needed. This is what we need to run our district how we ran it 5 years ago. Correct. So I've been in contact and communication with legal, and they are drafting a letter. We've gotten everything to them that we have been, documenting throughout the years. Obviously, it's not really something I want to bring up in public in case other people are listening. But so that's where we are. That's where we're currently at for that, and also for Shipman and Goodwin legal fees. We do not have an actual signed contract each year. We've used Shipman for many, many years, way before I even got here. But to give you an example, so I went through the past 3 years of invoices. So currently, if we get a partner, it is between $390 an hour to $465 an hour. If we get an associate, it's between $320 to $350 an hour. And then our special ed area realm under council and or partner is between $370 to $410 an hour. And when I compared it to the past 3 years, it's roughly between a 3 and 5% increase each school year that we're being charged. But we don't have a retainer. It's, when we need, we call, and then they assign us someone.
So
And Christina can tell you, we have our certain lawyers that we always deal with that know Windsor very well.
So what about things such as the policy that they must create each year based on statutory changes, which everybody gets? How do we pay? Do we pay a certain?
No, we don't pay for that because that is actually part of CAVE and everything that we pay with membership fees. So all of the policies and updates, law changes, I want to say we get them for free because they're not billing us directly, but obviously.
It's part of our fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is, they bill us when we reach out to them.
Makes sense.
So, questions, Ms. Cantor, and then Mr. Panos.
Thank you. Did this law firm review the contract with DACO and Windsor Public Schools? And did they give you a written letter of recommendation approving it when there were no metrics in that? I didn't see any metrics, measurable metrics. And today, everything in business, it's based off of metrics. So I wanted to know if this firm gave you approval, it looks good. Is it in writing, and were there any metrics, or what did they recommend? Go ahead with no metrics?
Yes. So but again, it's not no metrics. It's the time we're in, and unfortunately, we were entering a contract during the height of the pandemic. So moving forward, you will never get a contract that doesn't have a specific number of days anymore for school year. You'll never get a contract that doesn't make us have, this many buses for this many days for, it's never going to be in a contract again. And this contract was given to the board in executive session several times. So I just want to reiterate that. I know it's not the same board back what it was, but this was a discussion back and forth on cost many times in the contract.
And have you reached out to other companies? Because there are other companies that are not having problems too.
So there's when you say companies, so we've actually have already outsourced the majority of all of our special ed because they just can't accommodate us. And so we've been doing business with Haven. The other two main companies is CREC or First Student.
What about?
Or M&R, M&J. Yeah, but I can tell you firsthand in my district, they have M&J. Every day I'm getting a call.
What about Smith and Enfield?
Smith, oh, no.
No?
Yeah.
Dr. Hill?
I'm sorry. I just want to keep reiterating, I know it doesn't make anybody happy. Nobody is doing it well. Nobody. Nobody. And I'm just going to keep saying it. Nobody. It's all these bus companies. If you were sitting here with Smith, or you're sitting at M&J, or you're sitting here with Rainbow, you would be fussing right now still, because they're all facing, it's not like DACO has a certain set of drivers. They got the Teamsters. Like, shoot, their contract went better than anyone's, right? They got all the benefits, they got everything. But no, I just want to remind the public, no one is doing this well right now. It bothers all of us. It's terrible. And as we said, in terms of the contract, when you talked about metrics, no one anticipated a pandemic when they laid out the contracts. And so we get to hear this as superintendents when we're in our meetings, at our conferences. Like, as Ms. Batchelder said, things will be different moving forward for everyone around the nation. But no one anticipated this. Very much just similar to the point that our student rep brought up earlier about the mask, right? The mask we were talking about in '93 were one thing. The masks now moving forward in society are very different, right? But no one, we never even saw signs that said you got to wear a mask. You would in your profession, right? You know, you go in this room, yeah, you guys been scrubbing forever. We, as the general public, we didn't walk into buildings and say wear a mask. So, you know, the world has shifted. And so, like with the buses, people now know moving forward with a new contract, there are so many more things that we will have. You wouldn't know to have asked for these things because, we, you know, even the whole idea of losing 18 buses, we didn't lose that number of students, you know, at all. So I'm like, that's just shocking information, but it's everyone's dealing with the same thing. There may be a smaller district. The Bloomfield one, to me, is quite an anomaly, so I'm not sure what's really going on there. That's just an anomaly, where someone said we have no issues.
So I've worked in multiple types of business, and we all have metrics, whether it's insurance, whether it's in the hospital. So I guess that's something moving forward. It's a learned opportunity for everybody, for metrics, to include that. The other thing-
Absolutely, but I would also push back and say, think about hospitals, right? During the height of pandemic, their metrics for patients, they lost all that nationwide. They lost all that, so they got crushed. People, they had dead bodies in trucks, and everyone lost. But they rebounded because more money and the nature of the business had to focus on that. But we've made all our notes. As Mr. Lockhart said at the last meeting, he has a notebook now of stuff. We too.
Well, the hospitals didn't meet their metrics. They were told they didn't have to by the governor because he passed legislation saying you will not be responsible for any mistakes that you make, whether it's by a physician or a volunteer or whatever, so you're not responsible. But the other thing is, I have a response from a letter from Miss Jennifer Hosen. Can I talk to you about that now?
Are we done with
Are we
all our
done?
pieces? I just want to make sure we've covered all the DACO pieces, please.
So, Mr. Modaco?
I'm just double checking to make sure.
Well, I did the Shipman, and that was related to DACO, and
Yep,
I didn't know
yep.
if you wanted food service information or wait for budget for
I
that.
think she has DACO points still, correct?
I have one more DACO. I got a response back from Ms. Jennifer Hosen, and it said that she contacted dispatch, and they said the GPS showed that the door opened again, and she assured me that the bus stopped at the exact address. Well, because the commercial GPS resolution is 5 meters, the DACO dispatcher is not able to verify that the bus stopped at our address and the door opened at 6:53. My husband witnessed the entire event. My husband saw the bus slow down near our driveway, driving past our driveway, past our house, while our son stood there in the driveway waiting for the bus to stop. The bus never stopped, and they were required to stop there. and it just kept heading southbound, and we enforce our child to be out there to be ready. So, it sets a poor example, and I'm not saying it's you, but DACO, to be paid to do a job, and you expect a child to be there waiting, and they don't stop. So I just want you to know what happened. So thank you.
Okay, do you want to talk about food, or do you want to defer it to budget assumptions?
I mean, we had we have budget assumptions. Yeah, we can wait till then.
Up to you.
That's fine.
Okay. Next item is item 8A, budget assumptions, first reading. Dr. Hill.
Move that, oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to have Ms. Batchelder go over our budget assumptions.
You need a motion?
Yes. Is there a motion?
Move the Board of Education accept for a first reading the budget assumptions for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Is there a second? Second. Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. And
The purpose of this exercise, every year, a set of budget assumptions is adopted by the Board of Education. These assumptions include costs estimated for the next fiscal year's budget and priorities in the development of the budget. The superintendent is presenting proposed budget assumptions for the consideration by the board. I will also share with the board that I did meet with the superintendent as the finance chairman, did agree to these 10 items on the back as baseline starting points for starting the budget assumptions discussion, with the understanding that more than likely we would have a second reading of this document based off the conversation tonight.
now, do you want to go through these step by step, or do you want to just take questions that we may have as a board?
I would, if I may, Mr. President, as finance chair, I would recommend that I'm assuming that everybody has seen this document and that we just field questions instead of having her going step by step. If Mr. Panos is in agreement.
Yes.
Okay, so questions on the budget assumptions? Mr. Panos first.
I'll just start here. I'm just looking at the ESSER funding ending, and that's 31.5 FTEs. And so that's going to be quite a drop in a number of FTEs. So it's estimated at 1.8 million. Is that what you're saying here? So
Correct.
that would be, there's going to be quite a change there if we want to add 1.8 million to and then $3 million for a chiller or something. Then about
chiller
for a new chiller. That's right. And how many million for 18 buses? Yeah, that's the way you look at it. I mean, that's the way I understand that we have that many FTEs for that. But the rest of we still expect the ECS Alliance grant to be about the same here for the upcoming year, huh? That's
Yes.
interesting. But the big items are energy, right? The electricity and the gas going to, it's a fair $250,000, I'd say. So,
And that's town-wide, because the town of Windsor actually locks in all of our energy prices.
right,
So they're dealing with the same on their side.
yeah. And you have, I guess the health insurance you're looking for $500,000 increase in that one. That's, like you say, it's something jumped here.
Yeah, we spent 1.7 million more this past year than in previous years. And I've been watching this closely because we don't know if it's all because people didn't go to the doctors over during COVID, and if that trend is going to continue. So that's where we're meeting with Lockton within the next month to firm up numbers, but I just wanted to notify everyone that that's what we could possibly be looking at based on trends of last year.
Is there any possible reduction in the special ed tuition? That's been going up pretty rapidly. No, it's going to go up. It's pretty high right now. We seem to be picking up customers in that area and the cost. No, nothing.
I feel like I'm the pillar of positivity tonight with all this. It's like I have no good news for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to touch that, huh? Okay. Well, you know, I don't know, the other thing is transportation, and we just got done with it. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Lockhart?
Yeah, so we already know, well, first off, we have to be appreciative of the fact that we're an alliance district. There's been a lot of negative connotation about us being an alliance district, and as perceived as one of the 33 schools in the state that are not performing well or perceived not performing well, but it also has provided us that hedge of protection, make sure our ECS funding has not been cut and has been level, while other districts that have the ability to pay has been slashed and cut. So that's a blessing and a curse with having that designation, number one. Number two, fuel is going to be high. We don't know what that's going to look like, but that's going to be a very high number. We knew that these ESSER funds were going to be for 2 years, and we're now here, and we're going to have to look at the staffing of these FTEs and see through Dr. Hill what exactly has been effective and what we may have to keep to maintain the level of performance without regressing. That's something that we'll have to really take a serious look at, which is going to force us to also take a serious look at any positions that are one-offs, two-offs, where, quite frankly, we don't know what they do. And those are going to be conversations that we're going to ask of the superintendent. As far as the food insecurities that we've been talking about, whether it's the quality of food that's being presented for our children, all the way down to the fact that we're now back in the phase where we're going to have to charge the children for lunch again. And that has been a huge sticking point for the whole public. And we have to understand when we go through this process that Bloomfield Avenue North and Bloomfield Avenue South is two totally different worlds in regards to income and medium house income. But we also have to understand that both North and South of Bloomfield Avenue are paying more than roughly 30% of their income just for housing alone. And it's a lot higher Bloomfield Avenue North. It's more like 35 to 40% of their total income just for housing. That's a huge number for any household just for housing. So when we make these assumptions, we have to really, really be mindful of everyone is trying to make their dollar stretch. And a lot of families from the whole town has been saying, look, this has been one less financial burden that I've had to worry about. Yeah, the food might not be to the quality that I would like. However, my child is being fed and they're able to have breakfast and they're able to have lunch. So I think that's been something that's been consistent throughout the town. Now we're at the crossroads. Do we now say, okay, the grant money from the state or the federal government has run out, so we just go back to charging the kids or having kids go hungry because they can't afford it? Or what is the political will of our town? I think it starts with us as the Board of Ed. When we go through this process, I'm definitely going to be advocating for making sure that we feed our children. I need to know what that number looks like, and that's something that we're going to have to deliberate here. More importantly, the major maintenance portion of this budget assumption is something that we need to get an understanding of what is the true health of our physical plant to make sure that when we allocate the monies for major maintenance, we know exactly what we're dealing with. And then we also have this, we got to be mindful, any decisions we make as a board right now That's going to be something that we have to maintain over the next several years, short and long term. We also have the TIF that's being proposed by the town council, and that's something as well that we need to be mindful for, because any recommendations we make as a board, we pass it to the town council. The town council can tell us how much they're going to give us. They can't tell us how to allocate it. And then it goes to the town for referendum. So we're making a lot of decisions, and at times we have to, as the 9 of us, we're going to have to advocate as strongly as possible for our kids and to allocate for the funding that we feel we need to get all the priorities done. Do we have an infinite amount of money? We do not. And I realistically understand that. But we have some real priorities that have been spoken to us as a board. And I think as a collective 9, when we get to this budget process, the budget that the superintendent presents to us may not be the budget that we present to the town council. And I think this will probably be one of the first times in a while that happens. And this could potentially be a budget where we add more money than what the superintendent is recommending based off of the ESSER funds, based off of fuel and stuff like that. We just don't know. So I'm eager to start this process. I'm eager for all of us to sharpen the pencil. I am looking forward to spirited debate with Mr. Panos as we do what's best for our children in the town of Windsor. So I'm looking forward to this process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Clace?
I think the budget assumptions are a good start. I just had a few things. When we go forward into talking about the budget, I think it might be important around enrollment to look at the classroom size that we're targeting. For the health insurance plan, I don't know if there's been any consideration to controlling funds with a health enhancement program. So if you're a state of Connecticut employee, you have to go through certain health checks every year. You have to certify those online so that you can do preventive medicine, and there's kind of rewards for going to certain docs for that. So that might be something that can control costs. For the ESSER funding, I'd love to see a breakdown of what those 35 positions are when we go into budget. And I would like to see some extra things included, like meals, what meals would be enhancements to our programs. Maybe we want to put them under that. And then major maintenance increases for the chiller. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Cantor?
I know on health insurance, our health insurance keeps going up, and we have to keep paying more, and I think you're gonna have to ask the employees to pay more towards their insurance. I don't know if that's through the contract.
We're locked in.
We're locked into collective bargaining. Yep.
Oh, that's right. Next time, next renewal.
You know, if there are changes, unless there's a special session in the legislature, we're probably locked in that any changes in the legislature will be after our budget has gone through.
Correct.
So one of the questions I had, I know there were pretty much bipartisan support of children's mental health and whether or not any of the funds that may exist could replace. Usually they want you to add a new position, but if we're losing some health-related positions from ESSER funds, are there funds that could be used for a social worker or SEL-type person? Do we know? Have we looked into the funding
Yes.
that may be available?
So Christina and I have talked about that already, and Christina's already trying to figure out how she can move people into this new grants, because that would fall under the special ed realm. So yes, we're,
The grant is limited funding.
Right.
yeah.
It wouldn't even get us to FTEs.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? So we had a motion on the floor, correct?
Yep. I would just simply
Okay.
about to call the question, I just asked if there's anything, if there's anything else that you would like to see while I talk to Dr. Hill as the finance chairman, to going into the second reading of this document, please just send myself and the president email and copy Dr. Hill of what you would like to see considered in this document for second reading, so that Mr. Panos and I can bring it to our caucuses and then come to some alignment before the December meeting.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to accept the first reading of the budget assumptions for FY 2023, 2024. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900.
Mr. President?
Before you make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Were you going to talk about, any further about food insecurity?
I mean, I would, if it's okay, we can either discuss it in December or during our discussions on the budget. I mean, I can roughly give you, I mean, it would cost us about 2.5 million additional to have. And
breakfast and lunch?
Yes.
And that would be to everyone, or would that be a gap?
So that would be for everyone that we're currently serving. However, so our numbers have increased. What's interesting is when we started offering free meals, our breakfast numbers skyrocketed. So, and I can give that breakdown of, maybe we just do breakfast and not lunch because just at the high school, they increased by 50%, Sage 68%, Pequannock 70%. Like the kids that were eating breakfast soared. But the kids that are eating lunch, they definitely increased, but not to that magnitude. So Sage, we're feeding 19% more. High school, 36% more for lunches versus back when it was the normal priced meal. So there is definitely a significant need for breakfast. There's a need for both, but it's greater at the breakfast level. So I think this discussion needs to really kind of get dissected and have more time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Galinsky?
Hi, so regarding breakfast, do we actually know if these are students that are in need of breakfast or children who are literally just not managing their time in the morning and refusing to eat breakfast at home who can afford to eat it and coming to school because they know they can take the extra 10 minutes plus to miss out on their schoolwork to get the free breakfast?
I can't answer that 100% by any means, but what I can say is at Sage Park, we actually piloted this before the pandemic, and we started just doing one kiosk, so kids didn't have to just go to the CAF. They could, we had one right at the entrance at the 6th grade level, and just by having that the 6th graders didn't have to go to the CAF with the 8th graders, it skyrocketed. So I think there's a level of just ease because we have these kiosks now that we were able to buy with ESSER funding at all elementaries too. You don't have to just go to one place, so it's a quicker turnaround. And we did this with Sage, and it soared pre-pandemic.
Yep.
Dr. Hill?
I was going to say, just anecdotally from my experience, if you give kids breakfast, breakfast is the one they want the most. And I also would say there's a mixture of kids, and anecdotally, just my own household. All of a sudden, I can get breakfast, and she's running out. Like, we have everything in the house, but she's going in grab breakfast at school. Lunch is hit or miss if I want lunch or not, but the breakfast is, it's something that it's there. And as Ms. Batchelder said, I think the ready access makes kids grab it even more. But I've, in my experience as an educator for 30 years, it's always been the breakfast that kids want the most. I've seen many more kids skip lunch than I've seen breakfast. They'll come to class, be like, oh, I got to school late today. Can I go to the cafeteria? I'm like, they put the food away. They're already moving on to lunch. So, like many teachers, I'm not saying anything they don't know or do. Many teachers already keep things in their classroom, breaking the law or not. They got food in their desks, right? I always had granola bars or something because the kids are always going to want to eat. It's the morning. Very rarely to have a kid come to me midday or afternoon saying, hey, I need something, to eat. It's that breakfast. So I think when we opened it up for everyone, they were like, oh yeah, this works.
Ms. Galinsky, then Ms. Taylor.
But if we end up doing that, are we going to increase the quality of the food? Because right now,
Probably not.
the food my daughter tells me that they serve at breakfast, I don't even allow in my house. And I'm very disappointed when she tells me that she went and had breakfast there. And I'm like, no, you had breakfast at home. Like, we don't buy this kind of cereal. This is just pure sugar that you're eating.
Would you like to
So,
explain
and-
that?
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
she'll explain to you, because it's not pure sugar.
It's not, I know, trust me, because my daughter, I'm like, you ate what?
Right?
You know, I'm like, because we're not buying the muffins and the donuts, but what I can assure you is we have to follow the guidelines on healthy food. And it falls within, because it looks like a donut, but it's not the donut stuff inside. It looks like the sugary cereal, like the Captain Crunch when we were kids. It just looks like that. It's not actually what it is. And that's how they get the kids to eat it, because it looks like it. But it, it's the whole grain, it has the nutrients, and that's the federal state guidelines that think that that's healthy. I'm gonna just say that. That's what they say is healthy, and that's what we follow. But it isn't the donut that you think. It's the donut or the muffin that you think we would buy at home. It is healthier. But again, I do quote that because it's the federal government. That's their level of healthy.
All marketing.
Ms. Taylor and then Mr. Halleck.
My daughter, like Dr. Hill said, could eat at home if she wanted to, but her bus comes before 6:50 in the morning. So if there's breakfast available, then she's going to get it, because I can't imagine eating that early in the morning before rushing out for a bus. But I think it's something to be said about breakfast. I think oftentimes, whether you can eat it at home or you can't, I know for me, rushing in the morning, the kids and everything, I get to work and sometimes be like, wow, I didn't grab anything. And then you got to now kind of wait until your schedule allows you to maybe grab that cup of coffee or whatever the case may be. With kids, they don't have that opportunity. So I'm thinking, I'm not saying that what we should do, what we shouldn't do, but it needs to be like addressed when you're thinking about kids who don't have the option of grabbing something. They kind of have to, self-regulate themselves, get to that bus on time, all those things. And they didn't have not just the time, but they didn't have the luxury of sitting and having a bowl of cereal because it wasn't there. And I think we need to get back to that too. I don't want things to get lost in choice. And when it comes to equity, I know people think that Windsor, everybody has the money or the bandwidth or the things, but to Mr. Lockhart's point, you just don't know. Everybody's just keeping their head above water. And so I would hate to kind of pick this apart and say, oh, well, if we add breakfast for all, then what's going to happen? Are they going to miss school? And no one's missing class because they had a bagel. That's not how this goes. So I just want to make sure that we're not getting lost in the point of when we're talking about food insecurity, it's the option to have it. The kids can pick it if they'd like to, but I really think we need to remember that having the option for children to eat is a non-negotiable, to me anyway.
Mr. Halleck.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on if we could possibly look at some options for breakfast that might be higher in protein. I know myself, I eat a high protein yogurt for breakfast, and that keeps me full longer throughout the day. So I know that might be a little more expensive, but I just want to see if that's something that we could possibly discuss as well.
Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Ms. Al. So all those things are there. They're there. I have teachers stopping me now saying they're there. And because we're part of that national food program, like, you guys are new, so you haven't had the presentation by food services to tell you, like, they are restricted on the things that they can buy. I'm not getting into the argument over how the cereal with parents at all. I'm sorry, I gave up. I got a teenager, just grab something. I got food. But they have the yogurts, they have all the different things the kids pick and choose what they want. The one thing I do want to stress is that, I remember in years past where so much stuff just kept getting thrown out. You can't give it away. So it's just like all this food and our tax money is just going in a trash can. And, oh yeah, and the other thing about food insecurity, and I'm saying this more for the public than maybe this board, having been in so many districts and also knowing what's going on around our country, don't get fooled by any town, and I'm being real clear, any town. There's a whole bunch of people with a lot of big houses sitting in the towns that you think are really doing their thing, and they ain't got no furniture in their house, they are house poor, and they ain't got much else. And when we were giving the food away in our community during the pandemic, people were clearly coming from other towns.
Yes.
And it wasn't Hartford and Bloomfield I'm talking about. Just want to make that clear. So as Ms. Taylor said, you never know what's in people's homes, you just don't. But I can tell you this, there is no poster or image of, food insecurity in our country. We like to put a face on it because that makes some people feel comfortable, but I'm always put the truth on it. There are just some people who are struggling and they all look different.
Ms. Cantor?
I just wanted to note that in the food service, we get 8 cents reimbursement per lunch for participating in the healthy food certification. I saw that, so thank you.
One of the things that I'm interested in, I know this was under budget assumptions, we're talking about next year. I'm curious about this year. I've talked to a number of people to say, what can we do? We hear this is ending, and then luckily we were saved that there was enough money in your account for us to be able to continue it in Windsor for another month. But, the churches, community action groups, individuals are asking, what can we do? Can we provide money to the board that can go into student accounts? What might be possible? I know Mayala and I were at a meeting, a Hunger Action meeting, and she was the representative from Windsor Public Schools. And there's a whole group between social services, the school system that's wants to know how can we do something this year? Is that at all possible? I know a number of years ago, I don't know if it was something similar happened where people were interested in paying off debt or putting money into accounts. So is there anything, even if we have to have a gap of a couple months to get this thing up and running, is there anything that we can try to do within this school year? Dr.
So
Hill.
the first thing I would say to the public, again, it connects with my last comments. The people have to get past their pride and fill out the card for free and reduced. Because if you're in that situation, we don't know as a school district. We're the end user. So you fill out the card, and that helps because now we can, we say, well, these people are taken care of by, a federal program. And then we can delineate who's in that other group and having trouble. Because honestly, as, altruistic as these organizations are going to be in our town, you just heard Ms. Batchelder say $2 million to feed our kids. Nobody's giving up $2 million in our town. That's a lot of money. So it's much easier for us to figure out, because then we can even come up with some ideas, right? But if I don't know out of the 9 of you, which of you are really the ones who can't get the food, like because your parents don't qualify, so I don't know, I need all of you who qualify to pay for to put your card in so that we know that's paid for, then we can figure out who's the ones that we really need to help. That's the difficulty, right? So you have, as I said, you have a mixture of people who won't tell you anything. I think Mr. Wilson said a few minutes ago, off the mic, people will suffer with a smile. And that's what's happening. People are not telling you because they don't want to fill it out. I literally went through this as a principal in Hartford, to have to beg people. You knew they qualified, but they would not fill it out. And so you find yourself in a funny predicament. And I'll just say this too. So we address the problem for now, right? And I'm not one who likes the Band-Aid approaches to things. It's back to that chiller stuff, right? They're gonna be hungry next year. We got a whole another 180 days coming up.
Yep.
And there's gonna be another 180 after that too. So folks have got to fill the card out so we can get those people squared away first. And then we can figure out who we really helping. Just like, I think an example when we went into the pandemic and we had to figure out, most cities and communities around the country struggled, right? They didn't have the equipment, the devices, they didn't have any of that stuff. And then on top of that, their infrastructure wasn't set up with the Wi-Fi. We just had to figure out how many families didn't have access to Wi-Fi, and I believe the number, once we got done, was like 90-something. It was some minuscule number in our whole town. So we only had to go out and buy 97 devices, where you had cities who they couldn't do thousands of people. So if we knew better, which we would if people fill out the card, than just using that analogy, we can go get the devices for if it's 100 kids or 300 kids. But right now, we have no idea. We just have everyone, the sky is falling, right? Because we're going back to where we were in March. I always like to use the date, March 10th, 2020. You were eating lunch how? You were eating breakfast how?
But do we know about how many people qualified for free and reduced in 2020 to where we are now as far as who people have?
We could get that number because we'll know how many people were in the program. And
I know there was an issue at one of your coffee chats regarding, encouraging people, and you said it was going to be already in English and Spanish and looking into other languages. And I know the FRCs have been working in the schools to encourage families to fill out the requisite forms.
We're asking, you want to add on to that? Anything to add? Okay. I took away.
It'd be good to get that number to us about what was in 2020 and where we are right now.
For free and reduced lunch kids, qualified
Numbers of
kids.
people who
okay.
filled out
Yep.
forms to qualify. Because even if it ends up being, in a couple of months, that there's an interest within the community, even if it's not to pay for everything, whether it's to pay for breakfast, or whether it's to pay for X amount of dollars in kids who don't qualify into their accounts. If you take the pot of money, you divide it by the number of kids, and maybe everybody, instead of getting what they might need for a week of $100, maybe only get 20. So they get to eat at least a couple. There'll be something in their account where they can go to eat. And if we don't.
So I see Ms. Galinsky, I just want to make sure, and that's great, but somebody got to be the voice of reason, because I'm the one that's going to have to field all this. So I'm giving a man a fish for a day. Just remember that. That is not going to help us. So I just want to say that. I know people out there are like, oh my God, he doesn't want to help you. So you feed them so now it's March 2nd, 2023, and the community's out of money. We don't have the money. What are we going to do? So I just want to leave it out there like that. I'm done.
And I know one of the other things that they did, and then I'll get to other folks, is I know the Weekend Wheels is K through 8, and at the last meeting, they talked about getting that in case there were some folks at the high school where there weren't younger siblings, and trying to roll that out. I don't think they made a final decision, but I know they're looking into doing that. And again, to have the stigma, these kids are not rolling the duffel bags down the street to say, oh, there's a kid who qualifies for free and reduced. They're being driven right to the houses on the weekends. Questions here, Ms. Galinsky?
Not so much a question, but more of a comment to what we're talking about right now, is that I know the PTO at both Oliver Ellsworth and JFK are very much aware of this issue, and they're trying to work with the principals to figure out who exactly does qualify. Now, I don't know if that's above and beyond what the principals do. I cannot speak for that. But I know that the PTO is very much advocating to raise some additional funds to help these students that are in dire need. So that it's not really coming out of the board's budget, but it's coming out of the PTO funds. And so that was a really nice thing to hear, and I don't know how long they're going to cover that for or when it's actually going to get off the ground, but at those two specific schools, they are fully aware and just trying to brainstorm ideas of what they can do in the meantime.
Thank you. Mr. Wollaston?
So I mentioned before a little while earlier when I was speaking about the Student Governance Council, working with the student rep, working with the board, and how when we come together, things can possibly get done. I understand that you're going to be feeling the most of the pressure when it comes down to these things, but it's also on us as elected officials to reach out to other elected officials, whether it be the state reps that we help work for and elect into office, or the or the state senators that we have access to as well. And we're going to CABE on this Friday. We have opportunities to speak out and raise our voice on these topics, because we're not always going to have all the funding here, but we can go to the state board this weekend and say, hey, this is a big problem for us. This is something that we can't really figure out or solve on our own. And you helped us out for these past 2 years, but out of all the things that we really need help with, we think this is a big issue for us. So it's just my encouragement for us to look to our other officials and our higher ups, because they don't know unless we say. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Don't get fed.
Ms. Taylor?
Yeah, I think, especially with what this school governance council is talking about, is not the folks that qualify on paper, is the people that on paper they don't qualify. That's the pocket of people. I know for a fact I got no money for college because on paper my mother made too much. So that's the people we're talking about. If you qualified, you're good. But when you look at the grid of what qualify, I would have to have 10 kids by how much money I make to qualify. Hello? So.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Is it worth it though? So I just want to. It should qualify for stuff. Yeah, I don't qualify for anything, but so it's that middle class, right? Those are the people who, the working class folks that, but on paper, they don't qualify because they don't meet the thresholds for a lot of services, not just free and reduced lunch. So I just want to put that out there.
And if I could just, that's what my point was about having folks fill the card out, right? Because I think what people are conflating are the folks who they know are, at the, I don't want to say poverty level, but who qualify, and they're like worried about them. I'm like, they're going to be okay. That's what the program's set up for. It's the ones who, got the shiny car in the driveway. You think they're good, but like you said, on paper, they don't qualify because they got money, but they're struggling. And we don't know who they really are, because we need to get the people who qualify clearly out the way in terms of filling out the cards, and then we can look and see and ask more questions, and then all the community efforts, everything makes more sense, because we're not now trying to feed the masses. We have a particular targeted group.
Yeah, and one of the things I had suggested before was to look at the poverty level. And so let's say a family of four, if you make $50,000 or less, you qualify, then can we look at how do we get to $60,000 or $70,000, that extra gap, not to everybody, which would be nice, and we'll see those numbers, but they could be too scary, or they could get defeated. And is there an alternative that at least is better than what we have, looks like what we're going to have?
Right.
I think we've, you have,
I just
Mr. Panos?
make a comment here that anytime you reduce the price of something to zero, you're going to have a dramatic increase in the demand for it. That's just economics 101. And so it's not at all surprising that when we made this zero cost for breakfast and lunch, that the numbers we saw came up. So I think, getting back to this, there may be more poverty today, but it can't be dramatically different than what it was 3 years ago. There is also the element that it really is the responsibility of parents to send their kids off to school in the morning. Breakfast, that's like a basic thing. I don't know when that changed, but we did not provide breakfast generally, if I recall, like 20 years ago. It certainly wasn't something. So I don't know why we're so much poorer today than we were 20 years ago. But this sort of thing has to be considered.
But the breakfast, just to be clear for the public, because they're always listening, the breakfast program is from the 60s. That's not new. That's pretty old in our country. But I get your point, Mr. Panos, and that's what I was saying as well. March 10th, 2020, where did people stand? right? I'm not saying people haven't moved in the group or out of the group in terms of, but yes, the numbers are probably not going to look like what Ms. Batchelder said, where you see a 50% increase of people who now qualify. Absolutely not. But
Well, the free and reduced has been around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. That's true. There is also SNAP and all this sort of thing. It's not like there's no such thing as food in the United States.
right, but again, I think you're saying what everyone else has said, and that's what we want to clarify. And I think Ms. Taylor was bringing up that point. The people who qualify for SNAP and anybody who qualifies for any of those government programs, that's not who we're talking about, because they still qualify. The problem is if we don't know who they are because they're not filling out, the requisite card. But we're also saying, they'll be taken care of. But we're saying the people who don't qualify, like on paper, right? Like the people we assume that live, and I never heard about the Bloomfield North and South thing until I heard Mr. Lockhart say that last night. I was trying to figure out where I live.
You're north. You're north. Barely north. Barely north.
I'm barely north, right? See, I'm struggling. We
Yeah,
need some food in our house.
I think that's exactly, I think that's a good point. So am I.
Right. So, right, we're right there. So I want breakfast tomorrow. But I'm just saying, you don't know who really, we don't know, right? Let's just think about it. Honestly, we look at our neighbors. As I drive up, Mountain each morning and come across Bloomfield from the north side, right? Barely. I don't know who in those houses are struggling. They all look like nice homes, right? The yards are done. People rake the leaves to the curb, right? It's a nice suburban town. But I don't really know who's hungry. And, but we're going to find out.
Maybe DATCO is helping us by, the kids are always late to school, there's no time for breakfast.
There you go.
So that's not a strategy, though, is that, Ms. Batchelder?
Hey,
I'm just throwing that out.
I suggest that we could have bean soup. You see.
How about stone soup?
Oh no, lentil soup.
Yeah, it's a bean soup.
Is there anything else? I'd like to move on. Okay, the next item is the curriculum development, and is there a motion?
Yes, there is. Move that the Board of Education approve Culinary Arts 2 as a first reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. No problems.
Is there an interest, do you want to talk about the possibility of waiving?
Well, hearing, Mr. President, I'm hearing that the minority leader say there's no issue with this.
Yes.
Is the chair and Mr. Panos open to waiving the second reading?
Well, okay, I hope so.
Yes.
I should understand that this should not be a
Yes.
habit, but I'll go along with this one because the food, everything, this looks pretty good.
I am the chair, yes.
With that being said, I offer a substitute motion, Mr. President, that I move the Board of Education approve Culinary Arts 2 as a first reading and waiving the second reading. That is the
I will
substitute
agree.
motion.
That's it.
Motion's been made by Mr. Lockhart, moving the culinary arts as a first reading and waiving the second reading.
Correct.
Any discussion?
Is there a second?
Mr. Panos?
Oh, I didn't hear you, sir.
Oh, sorry.
That's it. Loud and clear.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos,
Yes, sir.
excitedly seconding it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Was there anything else under curriculum development?
Nope.
Okay.
The other things under curriculum that may not go that smoothly.
Okay.
Committee reports.
Very nice.
No report other than, you're good?
Curriculum is the
Curriculum?
only one, right?
Yeah, okay. Other matters, regular board meeting, item number 10. Board of Ed Policy Committee will be meeting Tuesday, November 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. That's a virtual meeting. 10B, the Board of Education Special Meeting Tuesday, December 6th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. Here in the boardroom. 10C, next Board of Ed regular meeting is Tuesday, December 20th, 2022, 7 p.m. in the LPW boardroom. Next item is audience to visitors. Is there anyone, it looks like there's nobody
drove
here.
them out.
Is there anybody in the, online or on a phone?
Do you want me to do my script?
No.
Not if there's nobody online.
I was ready.
Sorry. You only get paid for each time you read the script. I don't know if Sally ever told you that.
Mr. President, there are no individuals with their hands
Without
raised
objection, I'd
and
like
no
to close
questions in the
audience to
queue.
visitor.
No problem.
So moved. Next item, is there a motion? Mr. Lockhart.
Move that the Board of Education enter executive session for the purpose of discussing item 12, ratification of the collective bargaining agreement between the Windsor School Administrators and Supervisors, WSASA, and the Windsor Board of Education before taking possible action in open session. We invite Superintendent Dr. Terrell Hill and Director of Services, Business Services and Human Resources, Danielle Batchelder.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of going into an executive session, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 900. We're into executive session.
Let's be quick because we got a 10:30.
Yep. Turn into pumpkins.
Someone said, what's in the water tonight? I almost lost it. I almost lost my Jesus.
Whatever it is at an acceptable level.
Yeah, in the Litchfield County Hills.
On behalf of the board, say happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, we're back in open session, and is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education vote to ratify the agreement between the Windsor Board of Education and Windsor School Administrators and Supervisors Association, WSASA, covering July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos to ratify the agreement between the Windsor Board of Education and the Windsor School Administrators and Supervisors Association covering July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Any discussion? Mr. Panos?
Does this go to the town council for approval in the end of this? Not like the teachers' contract? Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wait, you gonna
Well,
make
yeah,
an
I am.
announcement?
On behalf of the board, all members of the board, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving coming up. Be safe and be concerned for those who may be struggling at this time of year. Make sure you do reach out to your fellow neighbors. That's always important, and I know I'm kind of following the history of Mr. Lockhart in saying that. And one more motion.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Ms. Cantor.
Too long.
Is there a discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I delayed it.
Abstentions, motion carries 900. We are adjourned at 10:19.